Um, so this is the May 21st, 2024 open meeting of the Hopkinton Conservation Commission being conducted remotely consistent with an act extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency. The new law authorized all members of the public body continue participating in meeting remotely. The open meeting law's requirement that the quorum of the body and the chair be physically present at the meeting location remains suspended. This meeting, the Hopkinton Conservation Commission is convening by a video conference via Zoom app as posted on the town's web meeting calendar and the Conservation Commission agenda identifying how the public may join. Additionally, the meeting may also be broadcast by HCAM through one or many of its channels or platforms. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and that some attendees are participating by video conference. Accordingly, please be aware that others may be able to see you and take care not to screen share your computer. Anything that you broadcast may be captured by the recording. Supporting materials that have been provided to members of the commission for this meeting are available on the town's website. This meeting will feature public comment. After commission members and staff have discussed each project application on the agenda, the chair will open the discussion to public comment. Members of the public who wish to speak are asked to identify their name and address. 3 minutes will be afforded for each public comment. Each vote taken in this meeting will be conducted via roll call of the members. So I'll now confirm which commission members are present. Jim Cirillo.
Yep.
Ted Barker Hook.
Ted Barker Hook is here.
All right. Ed is not on, I assume, unless you say so right now. Janine is not here. Matt Moyen.
Present.
And Jeff is absent. And then myself, Melissa Recos. I'll now confirm staff that are present. Kim.
Present.
Anna.
Present.
And Joe.
Present.
Okay. Great. Okay. So I guess we'll get started with the work session items.
Through the chair,
Yes.
I just wanted to announce, in case anybody's on the call to hear, 28 Lumber Street, Hopkinton Stone and Garden. The applicant did request a continuation into our next meeting, which is June 11th, 2024.
Okay. Thank you, Kim. All right, so documents for review, we don't have any. Draft minutes for review. We have the February 27th, 2024 executive session. February 27th and March 12th. Did those present have a chance to take a look at those? Anyone have any comments? All right, hearing no comment. Guess I'll ask for a vote to approve those minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
All right, all in favor? Ted?
Ted, aye.
Aye. Jim, aye.
Is
Aye.
an aye. Matt?
Matt's and I.
All right, and I am an aye. All right. That's next we have the Hopkinton DPW Chestnut Street sidewalk informal discussion. Kim, are you presenting this or do we have DPW? Did DPW want to start?
Yeah, I'm going to pass it over to DPW.
I'll be presenting for this.
No, Eric, this is
I
something else. Yeah.
I
So
apologize.
this is a
I'm
different one.
sorry.
Yeah, not our
Thank you.
RDA. Yeah.
Hey, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Hi,
Hi,
Karen.
Carrie.
All right. Hi, I'm calling from my phone. So, Carrie, DPW director.
You're-
I'll just give you guys a little bit of a background, and then our consultant, BHB, can. Are we good?
Yeah, you're coming in and out a little bit. So
Maybe turn off your video,
No
Carrie.
good? Sorry. Try to turn it off. All right, we'll try that. Any
That's
better?
So
All right,
far.
a little bit. Yeah, lovely technology. So as a background, this sidewalk project was approved at the 2023 annual town meeting. So not this previous one, the one before it. It was sponsored by the planning board, and it was a response to a sidewalk survey that they did where folks were asking for more sidewalk connections to get access to the schools and more sidewalk connections that would do like a 1 to 3 mile loop. So they chose this area on Chestnut Street, and then we've since pulled VHB on to help engineer it. And that's when we looked into it a little bit more and noticed, just how close it is to the wetlands and jurisdictional areas and the impact. So we want to have this discussion today to bring the commission kind of up to speed to where we are, get some feedback from you guys on the different options that we're looking at and what kind of mitigation you might look for this project. And with that, I think I'll turn over. Peter, are you going to take over?
Sure thing. That's no problem. So yeah, so we shared in an email, we put together a couple different alternatives. So our project area is, going to impact 2 protected wetland zones. The first one coming off of Hayden Row, you'll see here, there's Beaver Brook. Just beyond it with an existing culvert. So we'll be working within that area. And then the next area, yep, you could see it right there, just in between Gibbon and Smith. There's another wetland resource area there. So we had put together initial preliminary designs, and that was, you'll see that as what I put together as alternative A for this, which includes shifting the curb in towards the road. We, found this to be the least amount of impact. However, in subsequent discussions with the town, with Kerry and engineering, they expressed concerns over bringing the road in and narrowing the road. There is enough movement for traffic, but just from experience on Main Street and other concerns impacting the existing drainage structures there, they expressed more of a desire to maintain the existing curb line. So the alternative that we show here shows the existing sidewalk, our rough limit of grading from our models as to areas that would be impacted. There would be, in this alternative presented, is a 6-inch granite curb as our roadway edge treatment, and then a 5-foot sidewalk right up next to it. And again, so it kind of shows what it would look like in this area. We put together some rough metrics as some rough metrics as to what we think the impacts will be. Again, these numbers aren't definitive. We haven't advanced the design to final because we kind of wanted to get the commission's input on how they felt about these alternatives and everything before we move ahead and try to present something a little bit more final, in which case we will be going ahead of the commission, submitting an NOI, and obviously these numbers will be a bit more finalized. So this was alternative A, like I said, with the curb line shifted in. So this is the Beaver Brook area. We anticipate that there'll be no direct wetland impacts, but you could tell that the wetland is pretty close to everything. And then obviously with the brook and the culvert right there in the head wall, things are a little tight. And then if you go on to the next sheet, please, you can see the other area. I know if it looks, the scaling of between these is a little different. I wanted to make sure that both the full wetland areas were shown on each sheet. So when we're looking at wetland 1 in Beaver Brook, it's at 1 inch equals 40 feet, and this one equals 1 inch equals 20. So just want to make sure in case anybody was a little confused by that. There is a difference in scaling. So again, yeah, so here we would be doing the sidewalk. There's a bit of a steep drop off the side of the road here. So we believe that it makes sense to also include in this area a steel guardrail. And again, we can tell that so we would just put that guardrail right at the back of the walk to help prevent any significant accidents happening should somebody get off the side of the road. And that dash line there is where we anticipate our rough limit of grading. So again, some disturbance to the resource area. There would be a net increase in impervious area within the resource zone. But again, by shifting the curb line in, that helps mitigate it. But I do want to emphasize again that engineering does not prefer this. They prefer alternative B, which I guess we can move on to the next one, unless anybody has any questions on this alternative. No?
Nope.
Okay. So this would be alternative B, which essentially maintains the existing curb line. And so it's essentially that same cross section, but it's just shifted 2 feet closer to the resource areas. So we anticipate, you could tell if you zoom in a little bit there, we have potentially some direct wetland impact. We could explore some different alternatives, some steeper riprap grading and things like that to help try to avoid that. But again, for the purposes of this meeting, we just kind of wanted to show that for this alternative, we would be getting pretty close to the resource areas. And just kind of wanted to get the commission's thoughts and ideas or comments on this when, like I said, the goal of this is to try to get a preferred alternative or something that the commission would likely approve once we proceed with NOI. So this would be, again, a 6-inch vertical granite curb for the roadway edge treatment with a 5-foot sidewalk right next to it. Again, compared to alternative A, there would be a little bit more impervious area added to the resource areas, and some closer grading and potential direct wetland impacts, which we will hopefully be able to fully avoid through more engineering, but if not, we can try to address through further mitigation.
Can I just ask a quick question? Can you go over what was the difference between A and B right there?
So no, that's no problem. The difference between A and B is just the location of the curb line. So in A, the curb line is shifted in to the road. So the curb line it's the existing edge. And then on average, it's shifted 2 feet in. So we're changing a little bit of the road to sidewalk surface, essentially.
Okay.
And again, that helps kind of get us off the resource areas a little bit. But again, from talking with DPW and engineering, they feel that alternative B is their preferred alternative. They would like to maintain the existing curb line. We could potentially just reuse some existing drainage structures that are there and not impact them. So from a cost point of view, that would be beneficial. And they, based on their experience with Main Street, Carrie, feel free to jump in if I'm missing something as to your reasons why it's the preferred one. But essentially, it's because of some of the experience from Main Street and some of the pushback the public gave from narrowing the road, in addition to providing further offset of pedestrians from moving traffic as well. So they give them a wider shoulder and there'll be more of a space between the public on the sidewalk.
A little bit more. Number one reason is that it screws up the drainage system and y'all have to adjust structures, and we didn't want to do that. We wanted to keep the existing drainage system, which seems to be sufficient at the existing curb line. And then there has been a lot of negative feedback when we've narrowed roads. And we know that there's going to be some traffic impacts around the corner with the new Elmwood School. So we're just being sensitive to that just because the public doesn't like the narrow roads. And then the last one, like you mentioned, is that if you move the curb line, you have it was like a 2-foot shoulder. It was barely any shoulder, which really doesn't meet the new intents in terms of, having some space for bicyclists that go along with the other kind of strategic goals of the town and providing more pedestrian friendly, bike friendly transportation. So that's why. The only reason that we would do option A is if conservation said, no way, you can't impact the wetlands this much. You need to get as far away from the wetlands as possible.
Okay, got it.
Thanks, Gary. And then, moving on, if nobody has any other questions for B, which I'm guessing is not, we can move on to C, which is an alternative that we had, again, in discussions with, we've talked with Kim and Kerry before this. We've heard that the commission for roadway edge treatments around the resource areas does have a preference to provide some form of berm, some sloped berm, in the interest of preserving wildlife crossings, small wildlife crossings, and so they can, access the wetland or if they need to cross the road. So when it comes to putting berm and sidewalk, from a highway safety point of view, and then there's also some written guidance in Mass DOT's Project Development and Design Guide. It's basically, for those of you who may or may not know, it is just a overall design guide that DOT submits, and generally, we try to adhere to all of the standards written in that on roads within the Commonwealth. That design guide provides guidance that if there's no roadway edge treatment, so no vertical separation of 4 inches or greater, then a sidewalk needs to be at least 5 feet separated from the road. So while with the berm, you would help preserve the small wildlife crossings, it would also have the largest direct impact on the resource areas, because again, we would just need that additional horizontal space off of the edge of the road there. So we would provide with this alternative, the berm, and then there would be a 5-foot separation. So after the width of the berm, there would be a 3 or 4 foot level landscape buffer, some type of grass of some kind to help maintain pervious area, and then the sidewalk, and then we would grade down as quickly as we can. But again, this based on our analysis and everything, this would definitely have the most direct impact to the resource areas. But again, we wanted to present to the commission that we did, we do care about what they would like, and we wanted to show that we did at least consider this and wanted to kind of share and get their input on the thoughts on this. So that is alternative C on this. And you can tell I tried to highlight the areas where it would directly grade into the wetlands.
Okay.
Through the chair.
Yes, Matt.
Quick question. Have you guys looked into mitigation areas within the right of way at this point?
We have not at this point. That would be something that we would explore. Again, we're trying to avoid impacting the wetlands as much as possible. So if, once we fully ruled in that we would be impacting them, that would be something that we would explore as to where mitigation could happen.
Yeah, I mean, from my perspective, I think that's an important factor in which of these alternatives, I would be most interested in the town pursuing. There's a lot of value in alternative C from my perspective. This is lower value resource areas right at the edge of the road. So if we can create a better buffer for pedestrian safety on Chestnut Street, which is a higher speed, higher volume road, whether or not the speed limit says that, while also maintaining some more appropriate crossings for the critters. I think the loss of lower value wetlands along the edge of the road with replication elsewhere may be worth it.
Yeah. As you know, like within the right of way, there's very limited space. So, would the commission be at all amenable to potentially like off-site mitigation or nearby mitigation, or would it have to be within the project area right there at Chestnuts?
I was curious, Carrie, if this isn't there like kind of like a almost like a bus turnoff area or something in the vicinity of where the sidewalk is going? That kind
Yes.
of, is that gonna stay if you have a curb? And I'm wondering if there's anything you can do around there if it's not staying.
No, we would propose to get rid of it. It's not an official bus turnoff. That's where they go. There is some Eversource infrastructure there, but again, like anything else, you're right. Once it's yep. So that's exactly it. So that was definitely one of the places we were looking at potential as mitigation. We could do some not successfully, but some invasive species removal, try to mitigate, but not a lot of space over there.
Yeah.
We're also for future, there is a subdivision that is being proposed in around this area. So we're also keeping that in mind as we move forward with the planning. I don't think it's come before you guys yet, but it's on planning board's radar.
Okay.
Through the chair, out of curiosity,
ahead,
is that the subdivision that the planning board didn't say no to, but said you need to provide affordable housing on that site? Has that developer come back with another plan, or is it someone different?
I don't know anymore. It's probably that, but I don't know more.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I guess as far as proximity to the site itself, the closer the better. But I mean, I think I'd be amenable to seeing, you know, options if you had ideas of somewhere else that creates more value. I agree with Matt. The stuff right off the road is tough. But I guess when we decide how much impact area we're talking about. Was anything, I know can you just talk for a minute about, I'm sure you looked at the other side of the street, but just for the benefit of commissioners, because all the alternatives are on the wetland side.
Yeah, so
Thank
the
you.
other
I was
side,
going to ask that, and then I thought that seems so obvious a question. They must have already answered it. So
Not yet.
so yeah, from an overall point of view, just there's a lot of grading concerns from the other side of the road. There's some vertical walls there, just from a building point of view and an overall project cost point of view, that the other side of the road was just something that we deemed not worth pursuing at the early stages in our design process.
And this is Greg Russell with VHB. One of the other things, a lot of the utility poles are on the other side, which results in a more significant impacts both right of way, because we need to maintain a 4-foot around each of those utility poles, where the utility poles have to move, or the sidewalk has to kind of weave around them, which results in can result in significant tree impacts, right? Private property impacts. And we also, one of the goals of this was to kind of connect some of these neighborhoods. Both of the, two of the endpoints that we were looking at were on the south side of the roadway. So to kind of minimize the amount of crossing of Chestnut Street. For those developments to have to go cross Chestnut Street to get to the sidewalk, we felt all those things being in equal measure, the south side of the roadway is kind of the best place to start. And then with the intent, again, we were kind of looking at it in sections. So, with the long-term vision of potentially carrying this all the way out to the traffic signal at Hayden Row. But then that, kind of got put on hold due to the need to replace the existing culvert just to the west of Wild Road.
Mm-hmm.
So a few different things went into that decision. And, again, this is all, kind of the limits of this is kind of based on funding and the available funding that the town has. So depending, we may put this out, with one piece as an add-on to the project to see what kind of so the limits may change in construction, but we're looking to kind of permit the whole piece at the moment, just so that we have that flexibility when we go to construction.
Through the chair.
Yes, Matt.
Apologies if I missed this. I was on my phone earlier driving. What are the project limits? I see 2.34 miles, but we've only got wetland area 1 and 2 highlighted. Are you guys going from Wild Road to Smith Road, or where does this begin and end?
So the initial plan was to go from Wild Road to Smith Road. And then we kind of, I think the 2.34 is a typo, but we're kind of basing that on, again, available funding. The We looked at it based on the funding that was available. We said that might get us to a certain point. We also applied for a grant through the DOT Shared Streets program to extend the limits of the project, make sure we got all the way to Smith Street, or further if we needed to. And then, just from a planning standpoint, it kind of made sense to look at whether it made sense to bring the sidewalk all the way out to Hayden Row and tie it to the traffic signal directly. So we took a look at that, and the town's having a culvert assessment done currently. One of those is the culvert just to the west of Wild Road that's been called out for replacement. So we kind of felt that at this time, Wild Road was the kind of appropriate place to end it, rather than build a new sidewalk to have it ripped up when the culvert needs to be replaced. So.
Yeah, makes sense. And is there going to be design incorporated into this project to cross Chestnut Street or Wild Road?
Yes. Yeah. So we'll provide wheelchair ramps of ADA compliant crosswalks. One of the reasons, another reason that we're kind of looking at crossing on the west side of Wild Road, just because of the east side is kind of difficult. There's a driveway right there. There's, I think, utility pole kind of on that corner. So that was kind of, and that seemed to have the best sight distance on that side. So that was kind of why we chose the limits that we did. But there's always, depending on the funding, there's always chances to kind of shift stuff around.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I think my thoughts on the various alternatives were I agree. I would not want to see more work done to modify drainage and impact the roadway that's construction impacts the wetlands as far as A goes. I think walking the Ash Street sidewalk all the time, I do appreciate from a safety standpoint the granite curb. Even though I feel for the critters not being able to cross it, for my kids' safety, I do appreciate a granite curb along the sidewalk there on the busy street, with the high speed, that cars do travel. So that's my 2 cents. Does anyone on the board have any other feedback?
Through the chair, this is Ed.
Yes, Ed.
Sorry, I'm late getting into this. I had all kinds of difficulty and finally had to beg my dear wife to help. And we finally got in. I'm not really sure what our problem is, and I'm not really sure how I got in. But my question, what is the curb width of Chestnut Street compared to the current curb width of Main Street, curb to curb?
So you're asking for the existing curb width?
Right.
The pavement width, curb to curb.
Right.
So it should be, I think where it's around 30 feet. You have about 4 foot lanes and 11-foot travel lanes, 4-foot shoulders existing and 11-foot travel lanes.
So 22 and 8.
Correct.
Okay, I would just, had an idea where we narrowed Main Street to put in sidewalks and bike lanes. I didn't know whether the same could be done on Chestnut Street. So
options B and C both maintain the existing pavement width of the roadway.
Okay. I think if there's no other comments, do you have enough information? Yes, Kim.
Sorry, just one last comment. For the benefit of the engineering team, I do think offsite mitigation could potentially be really beneficial. However, I do know that there could possibly be some problems convincing DEP. So my recommendation would be, before you potentially explore that, explore it with DEP as well to see if they also would be amendable. That's all. Thank you.
Okay. Was that enough feedback? Does the engineering team have any other specific questions or? To get a flavor.
Well, I guess we got a flavor. I guess if the it sounded like, Matt, you seemed like you felt strong about the roadway edge treatment and everything. So I guess, is that something that could potentially be a sticking point if we, proceed without that?
No. I think either option B or option C are both appropriate in my mind. I agree wholeheartedly with Melissa that, this is a sidewalk project. We don't want to turn it into a drainage project as well. So hold the existing edge of pavement. I would suggest evaluating B and C from a impact and possible on-site mitigation perspective and see where that puts you. And then certainly if you want to come back, I think we would welcome you back to talk a little further about it. That's where I stand on it.
Great. No, I think that's good. That's good. Thank you. I think that's enough.
Okay. Awesome. Thanks. All right. So I think based on the timing, we should get over to the new hearings, which is DPW again. For our first application of the night. Let me see if I can find.
So, hi everyone. All right, I don't have my camera on, but again, Carrie Reed, Director of Public Works. Thank you for having us. So, for a little bit of background on this project,
Carrie, before you get going, I need to read the notice, right, Kim?
Yes, please.
Got
Okay.
you. Sorry.
That's okay. I was struggling to find it, but I got it now. You bought me some time. All right. The Hopkinton Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing on Tuesday, May 21st, 2024 at 7 p.m. virtually online to hear all persons interested in a request for determination of applicability filed by Hopkinton DPW for drainage improvements and associated site work. Location, Wood Street right away from Walker Street to Indian Brook Culvert at 83 Wood Street. This application is subject to the Wetland Protection Act, Chapter 31, Section 40 as amended of the general bylaws of Massachusetts and the Wetland Protection Bylaw of the town of Hopkinton. All right, go ahead, Carrie.
All right, thank you. So again, Carrie Reed, Director of Public Works. This project, similar to last one, was approved at the 2023 annual town meeting. So not this most recent one. This project came about because the abutting property owner, the outfall was discharging directly onto their property without an easement, and they are not granting the town permission to discharge onto their property. So we were challenged with having to figure out a way to revise the drainage system so that didn't happen. So it's still the same drainage system. It's still the same receiving water body, but we don't have the proper easements to be able to keep it the way it is. And then y'all should probably be familiar because it's in the vicinity. That's the DPW facility right there where we had some recent work. The construction of the houses that were impacted is pretty new. So hopefully you guys are familiar with that. But with that little background of why we had to do this project, I will turn it over to VHB to explain what we're asking to do.
Thank you, Carrie. Eric Olson here from VHB. Do I have permission to share?
I think you do.
I just need to stop sharing,
Oh, yeah,
and then
I
you
think
should be
someone
able
needs
to
to stop
grab it.
sharing.
Yep, you should be able to grab it now.
There we go. All right, can everyone see that okay?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, great. All right, so as Carrie said, this is the Wood Street Drainage Improvement Projects. And so Carrie showed an overview, but this is another overview. This is the project area right here along Wood Street. As you can see, it's kind of right in the middle of a wetland complex with the Indian Brook passing under the roadway here. We have a close-up here of the actual work area between Walker Street and Indian Brook right here. And so again, the applicant is the town of Hopkinton DPW. And as Kerry stated, the project need is, due to the outfall, the existing outfall from one catch basin along the intersection of Walker Street and Wood Street is discharging onto this residential property. It's causing flooding on the property, and we don't have permission, for that drainage easement. So the work area itself would be located within the roadway easement along Wood Street and Walker Street. So everything is, within the easement. The work overview would be to, terminate that outfall and reroute the stormwater underground through pipes directly to the culvert underneath the roadway that discharges into Indian Brook. Along the way, we'd also install, this was a good opportunity to add some improvements along the roadway here. So we'd install 2 new catch basins along Wood Street to capture storm drainage, install an asphalt berm along the roadway to keep the stormwater along the road and prevent overland flow into any adjacent wetlands. And then we'd also enhance and stabilize an existing eroded stone swale, as you can see here. So just to back up a bit, this is the catch basin that's discharging in this direction out to this point right here, and onto the existing residential property and causing flooding downhill here. And the enhancement and stabilizing of the existing stone swale will be right here. As you can see, there's some erosion. This is further down. This is Indian Brook right here within wetland 1. And it's we have overland flow coming right through this curb break here, and causing a little bit of erosion. So the plan is to enhance this with riprap and stabilize it so we're not having additional erosion into the wetland and stream. So the resources in the vicinity of the project are BVW. This is again Indian Brook right here. This is wetland 1. This is what the we have a triple culvert right here that goes under the roadway to wetland 2 on the other side of the road here. And this is another wetland that is further up the roadway. It's outside the project area. So there will be, so the resources are BVW, bank, land under wetlands and water bodies, and bordering land subject to flooding, and riverfront area. All the work would be on existing paved areas, with the exception of this stone swale enhancement right here, adding riprap there. So there'd be no direct impacts to resource areas, or within the RFA, there would be no alteration of the area. Most work within the paved roadway, minus the repair of the existing stone swale within the 100-foot buffer zone and the 10-foot no disturb zone and the RFA. There's no priority habitat of rare species, estimated habitat of rare wildlife, any vernal pools within the area, outstanding resource waters, or any areas of critical environmental concern. On the regulatory standpoint, we do qualify as a limited project under 10.02 2B21 as the installation of underground utilities within the existing paved or unpaved roadways. And we're also exempt from the requirements of the riverfront area for certain minor activities as identified in 310 CMR 10.02. All work is within the Hopkinton, all work within the Hopkinton 10-foot no disturb zone is located within previously disturbed areas. As you can see here, our improvements would be right within this area right here. So there'd really be no change in vegetation. It's really just a disturbed area that we'd be stabilizing. As far as mitigation measures, so when we designed, our design and construction methods are made to help improve the stormwater quality. The 2 new catch basins that we'd be installing would be deep sump catch basins that will reduce the sediment load into Indian Brook. We will be reducing overland flow by keeping this water on the roadway, and also when we divert the outfall from its current overland flow, where it flows overland and eventually down into the wetland, that will be reducing any chance for erosion along that, and just kind of keeping the stormwater on the pavement and in the catch basins. And then we'd also be stabilizing the eroded swale, which would also help reduce the sediment load. And when we do the work to install this under the roadway, when we do go to connect to this culvert under here, we would plug that outlet into the culvert during construction, so there'd be no threat of erosion into the stream as we do our construction. Also, we'll be installing erosion and sediment controls around the project limits in various areas where we're doing earthwork to make sure there's no erosion into any resource areas. Some of the comments we got was asking about alternatives. So there were several alternatives that we did consider. Obviously, the no build is always an alternative that's considered. In this case, we are discharging, as Kerry said, onto this residential property where we don't have permission. So the no build, was not really an option. We had to figure out a solution on where to move this stormwater. So the first alternative that we did think about was extending the existing outfall pipe along a new easement through the residential property. But as Kerry mentioned, that's not an option. It doesn't sound like we can get an easement through the property. So then the next solution was to get this, use gravity to get this downhill towards the resource area and follow a natural drain path down through the roadway. So we did consider putting an outfall over here around wetland 2, having it come out and right in that area, but that would result in some impacts to the resource areas, to BVW, possibly Indian Brook, and we were trying to avoid that. So the solution that we came up with was to directly tie it in to the culvert underground underneath the roadway. That way it would limit or completely erase any potential for direct impacts to the wetland. So in conclusion, the applicant respectfully requests that the Hopkinton Conservation Commission finds that the measures presented here adequately protect the interests identified in the Wetland Protection Act and the Town of Hopkinton Wetland Protection Bylaws, and that you issue a negative determination of applicability. And with that, if you have any questions, I also have the plan set. If you want to take a look at that, we can kind of walk through it. Any other questions you might have.
Okay.
So I'll just, there's 2 plan sheets here. So this is kind of this is the existing catch basin right here. The outfall that currently exists is right over here, and we're trying to move that downhill under the roadway, adding in catch basins along the way and discharging over to Indian Brook.
So where the two new catch basins are that you're adding, you're saying that stormwater currently just flows down the road.
Yes.
And gets where?
Yeah. Okay, I'll back up to here. So currently, I have Peter Baruzzi and Luke Boucher here with me. So correct me if I'm wrong, gentlemen. But so currently, what doesn't discharge into this catch basin and go out in this outfall, probably from just east of Walker Street, just flows down the roadway and goes essentially down right here. There might be some overland flow going off the road in various areas, but I think a lot of it does directly flow right to the wetland through this kind of eroded break in the curb right next to this is the DPW driveway right here.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll back up to over here. So yeah, so it flows down the roadway here and kind of goes right to the wetland right there through that little break in the curb.
So yes, that's accurate. Yeah, there's no, all the water is flowing overland and not receiving any treatment or anything like that. And so the goal of adding those additional structures would be to provide some more treatment, get some more suspended solids and everything out of the water, and get the water treated before it ends up in Indian Brook. And additionally, getting the water off the road as quickly as possible, so there's no gutter spread or anything like that, or cars splashing it up.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, Luke Boucher with VHB. Sorry, not to, pepper you with 4 people from VHB, but I just wanted to chime in one thing. There was one spot. So essentially, like what Eric was saying, we're running that trunk line down the road essentially to convey this one catch basin. But if you're running the trunk line down the road, there were a couple spots where we're like, hey, there's puddling here that we might as well drop a catch basin and help out with that situation. And there was another spot where we're putting a little bit of berm, and that was a spot where water was actually running along the road, and actually, it was not washing. It was not. It was essentially just eroding the side of the adjacent grass area, and essentially kind of picking up sediment as it went. So where we're showing that is essentially trying to block off that area where water is running, at your edge of pavement, between your edge of pavement and your adjacent grade, and essentially starting to undercut the pavement. So this is just a way to keep that from happening. And like Peter said, keep that water on the road there without it going just off the road, causing some erosion, and then getting back on the road again. But with that sediment load.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can see my cursor, Luke's talking about this area right here. This is the proposed berm on the side of the road.
Okay, so I think the question to the commission right now is this an RDA application versus a notice of intent? I think the things that I see, obviously, we're not increasing impervious area. You're dealing with existing runoff in drainage. You're kind of taking an outfall that exists, and I would say moving it to a different location. You still have an outfall. It's just an outfall into the culvert. And I guess I would be curious to know, is this in the Charles? I should know this. Is this in the Charles River, or is this outside of our MS4 area?
It's through the chair. It's in the MS4 area, but it's not in the Charles River watershed.
Okay. So I was just curious if there were any, I mean, I know you have the deep sump catch basins for TSS is a improvement. Do we look at the soils or anything for additional infiltration or any additional BMP improvements? Or
I'm not sure really where we'd find any space to do any kind of infiltration. I mean, we were working within the roadway. The only spot where we're doing any work on the earthwork at all is just right here, and that's just to add riprap to keep this from eroding and capture sediment that comes down. So I'm not sure if there's really like any space available for infiltration, especially since we're working within the roadway easement.
Yeah. Within the right of way, there's not a ton of space. There is like the town-owned DPW property right there, but they have
it's the DPW
relatively substantial system already in the front parking lot. And obviously there are a bunch of utilities through this corridor as well. That we have to avoid. There's gas and water and sewer through here. So, with all of those, we're kind of end up a little bit limited on our space, particularly within the right of way.
Okay.
For the chair.
Go ahead. Yeah, I was going to ask if anyone else on the commission has thoughts.
A couple quick questions, and Luke may have just answered it for me there. We talked primarily about the south side of the road. When that plan came up, it looks like we've got a crown section of road and a bunch of flow also goes to the north side. And I see in this picture, it looks like there's a paved waterway there. Was there any consideration about incorporating catch basins to capture that runoff as well as part of this project, given we're putting a trunk line in?
Yeah, we were only looking at, initially we were only looking at the south side of the road. And then when we added those additional catch basins, well, really, we were looking at that one location. But you know, there's puddling within the right of way on the south side of the road and that's kind of the primary reason that we were incorporating some of those additional catch basins. There hasn't been any, I don't believe there's any noted puddling on the road down here at the brook, at the north end of the road.
There, if I can also add into that, there's no existing road edge treatment, so there's a large private business across the street from the DPW, and there's no roadway edge treatment. Their driveway is a little bit lower, so in order to capture that water, we would have to potentially rework their entire driveway opening and everything, and add in an additional roadway edge treatment and all of that.
I mean, from my perspective, if we're doing a drainage improvement project on Wood Street, we should be doing a drainage improvement project on Wood Street, not half of a drainage improvement project. So I'll say that piece. And then the other question I had was, do we have any plans that show the proposed erosion and sedimentation control measures that would be implemented?
I believe they were on the plan set.
Yeah, they're right there in turquoise there.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, there they are.
Yeah.
Yep, right here on the roadway here. And then, yeah.
Is it compost filter tube, silt fence? What are we talking?
Well, whatever you would require, straw wattle or silt fence, and it'll likely go with wattle unless the town had an issue with that, then we could use silt fence and hay bales.
Thank you.
Joe, do you have any comments on this? Did you get a chance to take a look at it?
Yeah, I do actually.
Okay.
I did have a chance to go out and take a look at the site and look at the wetlands and the delineation. And in general, I had no issues with the delineation. I did observe, and I know I had submitted some photos. It appeared that the erosion where they're proposing to do the swale repair adjacent to the BVW. Looks like it's gotten worse from the photos that were submitted. There's some pretty significant erosion actually down into the BVW. And that might need another look at as far as stabilizing further down gradient than what they were initially proposing. But just thought I'd note that. Had a couple of technical comments on the delineation forms, which really didn't change anything as far as where I thought the boundaries were. I did note that the narrative was claiming a minor activity exemption under the WPA for installation of underground utilities. And I talked with Chris about this too, Chris Lucas about this too, because it doesn't mention drainage in the actual regulation exemption. It mentions electric, gas, water, and I think our opinion at this point is that the stormwater drainage is not generally included in that exemption. Also noted that the project states it will not increase any impervious surfaces or result in any new discharges to the wetland resources. The existing discharge is actually to, upland area, and then it flows overland. I didn't examine that in detail, but I think it just more or less flows overland eventually to the resource area. Well, however, what they're proposing is the new discharge is directly to Indian Brook within the culverts under the street. So that could be considered a new discharge. I don't know if the applicant has some additional information as far as why they would not consider that a new discharge. noted a couple things on the site plans. The 10-foot no disturb and the 15-foot no build zones were not indicated on the plans. Same with the 100-foot inner riparian line. The stream, Indian Brook, flowing through the culverts under Wood Street. It is perennial, obviously, and the culverts actually function as bank to that stream at that point. So you're actually adding a discharge to the culvert, which is functioning as the bank of the stream at that point. Which is a little bit different than, if you're proposing a discharge up gradient of a wetland. The stormwater outfall, although it's proposed within the pavement, it's actually proposed, essentially on the bank of the stream with the culvert. And then we thought that, a waiver request would be necessary for that. And in general, I think we don't feel that we will feel that notice of intent is probably more appropriate for this type of, for what is proposed. And I think that covers my comments. I'll be happy to answer any questions on those.
Okay. Thanks, Joe. Those are good comments. I was having the same feeling about it. It's not just going to a culvert. It's actually is going to the brook, directly discharging. Does anyone else, Kim, do you have any thoughts on or comments on this?
Thanks, Melissa. I don't think I have any additional comments that haven't already been brought up. I had a conversation with Carrie this afternoon, and we talked about, is there a potential for additional, BMPs, which we kind of already discussed. I'm not sure if, a water quality unit is appropriate here. But yeah, it's a tough position. I think for DPW, we want to make sure that we're kind of meeting the needs of being in compliance legally for the town, but also kind of balancing that with, the best outcomes for conservation. So it's a sticky one.
Yeah.
I will add that, it does appear, and I remember running into this with Carrie again in Framingham, it does not appear that drainage is specifically listed in the State Wetlands Protection Act as meeting that limited project provision. Whether it should be there or not is a separate discussion, but as it's currently written, it is not included. It is included as a utility under our bylaw.
Drainage is, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Anyone else on the commission have any thoughts or comments? Or anyone in the audience?
Melissa, one other item
Yep.
to tie back to my prior comment about drainage on the north side. Yeah, I would consider that another BMP, right? If we're going to take flows that are currently untreated, putting them through deep sump catch basins, I would consider that an additional BMP from what's currently proposed. And I do believe, while there's not a definitive curb treatment on the north side of the road, I drive by that area every day. My recollection is there's basically a hump along that existing commercial development to stop roadway runoff from flooding their parking lot. So I don't know that there would be much additional, and it looks like the topography on the plan shows that as well. Contours kind of jump back on themselves. I don't know that there would necessarily need to be additional curbing the entire length of Wood Street. There may be a couple of spots across from the DPW lot where you can see that ponding. But really, we're talking about 3 catch basins and another 60 linear feet of pipe to do some pretty substantial improvements to currently untreated segments of Wood Street. And if there's a time to do it, now would be the time to do that.
Right.
Through the, I will mention, we do have some major utilities, as you know, like the sewer pump stations right there. So we do have some challenges with getting across the street with other utilities. I don't know if we'd be able to put a deep sump catch basin on the other side and still get across.
Understood. Yeah, it just sounded like there wasn't much of an evaluation up to this point. And if the answer is there's utility conflicts and it can't be done, then that's the answer.
So I think for now, the decision is either we can vote on the RDA and what the commission thinks, whether this meets the criteria for an RDA or whether we think it triggers a notice of intent, which it sounds like, there's a lot of discussion on this. So I'm kind of leaning towards notice of intent to vet those alternatives. But the other thing we could do is whether DPW wants to consider the feedback for tonight, or you would like us to go ahead and vote.
Through the chair, I mean, we have the feedback. I don't have a preference one way or the other. We're stuck between a rock and a hard place. So obviously, if you decide that we should submit an NOI, we'll just take this back, rework an NOI, and then incorporate all the feedback that was from here. But it's whatever y'all feel comfortable with. I mean, I don't imagine that there'd be too much conditioned into the for this project, because there's not much else that we can do, but whatever the commission feels comfortable with is how we'll move forward.
Okay. Let's go ahead and take a vote then. Can I get a motion to issue? All right, so this is the negative positive phone of an RDA, right?
Through the
Can you give
chair.
a recommendation on the motion to make it least confusing?
Perhaps you might want to take a temperature of the individual commissioners, or perhaps you want to take a temperature of the individual commissioners first, and then the applicant can get a feel for if they might just want to withdraw the RDA without prejudice.
Okay. All right, Matt, what are you feeling?
I'm feeling like this is better suited as an NOI.
NOI. How about you, Ted?
NOI.
All right, Ed. You're on mute, Ed.
Having
Still
so
on
much
mute. Oh, there you go.
trouble tonight. I'm going to say no opinion.
Okay. And Jim.
I'm prepared to vote for a negative determination.
Meaning you think an RDA is appropriate?
Yes, the RDA is adequate.
Okay.
So
Yeah, go ahead, Kim.
it sounds like we need a motion. So let me pull up the RDA form here and make sure I'm doing this correctly.
You're the chair. I don't think we got Melissa's opinion. Sure. So
I
that may split the vote.
Yeah, I feel like I noticed.
Non-vote.
Yeah, I'd feel like a notice of intent for this.
So through the
project.
chair, that's 3 members feeling like an NOI, 1 member negative RDA, and 1 member no opinion.
All right. So through the chair, with that in mind, it sounds like the best action would be for the DPW to withdraw this and then resubmit as an NOI.
I think so.
Do I have any feedback from the VHB team on here? Can I ask through the chair if there's any feedback?
Yeah, any feedback from the engineers?
No, yeah, we can put together the NOI application. But as Carrie mentioned, there's not a whole lot additional we can add to the design. But yeah, we can do that.
Okay. I think the I think the alternatives analysis and just going through some of the steps and having that documented would probably help for our record and vote. So, okay. So I think we're all set.
So Carrie, if you could submit something just in writing to me, and then we can process that. And I think that's the cleanest way. So the commission can consider the NOI application without any prejudice when it comes forward.
Okay, we will do that. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank
Through
you.
the chair,
Yes.
does the commission need to vote to accept the withdrawal? Or are we just gonna do that based on Carrie's feedback and then just have the follow-up written?
Through the chair?
Yes, Kim.
I don't believe that we vote on withdrawals.
Okay. All right. So all set. All right. On to the next hearing, Henkel 11 West Main Street. And I have to read this one too, because it's a new hearing. The Hopkinton Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing on Tuesday, May 21st, 2024 at 7 p.m. virtually online to hear all persons interested in a request for determination of applicability filed by Carlos Henkel to replace a failed septic system with associated site work. Location 11 West Main Street, Assessor's Map U18, Block 48, Lot 0. This application is subject to the Wetland Protection Act, Chapter 131, Section 40, as amended of the general laws of Massachusetts and the Wetland Protection Bylaw of the town of Hopkinton.
Hi, everyone. This is Andrew Tebow with Goddard Consulting.
Hi, Andrew.
Perfect. Thank you, Kim. I'm the representative for the applicant, Carlos Henkel. The commission may remember, so this property earlier this spring, would have been late February, early March, had started the construction of a septic system and a cease and desist was issued. At that time, there was an approved septic design through the Board of Health for the property. It was unknown that there was wetlands on adjacent to the property off to the east. So work had begun. The wetland flags that were actually previously there from a year prior were discovered. A cease and desist was issued, and the applicant was asked to withhold any future work and file an RDA for the remaining work. Since that point, we had gone out and redelineated these wetlands. They were delineated for a different property owner about a year prior. So the delineation that is now up in the field was put up specifically for this job. Because all of it is off-site, it was not requested to be reviewed as part of the project. However, everything was delineated that would issue a buffer onto our project. So the property that we see here is 11 West Main Street. It's located at the corner of West Main. A couple properties down is Wayland Road. It's about a 3/4 acre lot with an existing 3-bedroom home, a 1-bedroom detached apartment. It has an impervious bituminous driveway and an existing gravel/dirt driveway off on the eastern corner of the property. The property's been developed for a while, and there previously on the property were 2 cesspools, which are now failing. The cesspool that was designed for the existing 3-bedroom home is currently contaminating the groundwater. It's a failed system. And so the goal has been to replace it with a Title V compliance system. That compliance system is located greater than 50 feet from the wetlands. It's between the 50 and the 100-foot buffer zone. It's roughly about 75 feet for a limit of work, as you see here on the plans. The system itself consists of 2 different 2-compartment tanks associated with the existing house and the existing detached 1-bedroom apartment, and it's a stone leaching field. They were able to get a 4-foot separation to groundwater on the property, so no variances were needed. And the system that you guys see here has been approved by the Board of Health, but no construction has continued since that cease and desist. So this application is looking to get a negative determination to allow that work to continue and install this system. There's no other work on the property with this RDA application. It's purely to replace the failed system with a Title V compliance system. So if you guys have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Okay. Joe, did you have any comments on this?
Yeah, I have just a couple. I did have a chance to go out and look at the site. As Andrew had mentioned, that the delineation is offsite, so I didn't do any intensive inspection of the delineation, but I did look at the flags that pretty much control the buffer zone in the proposed work area. And based on vegetation and the slope there, I had no issues with the flagging in that area. That was roughly flag 15A through 21A. As was shown in some of the photos, there's erosion control has been installed. The wattles are installed. I know the application noted there wattles and silt fence as erosion control, but probably the wattles are sufficient unless there's a stockpile that's moved closer to that location. Also did note that there's a large debris pile on the site and some invasive species, and just recommending that those are handled appropriately and disposed of appropriately when the work is occurring or at some point in the future. Just a quick note on the stream on the adjacent property was reported as perennial, where I think actually it is mapped as intermittent actually, and stream stats review would find it to be intermittent also. So there's no potential for riverfront area on the site. Let's see. I did note in the application that no proof of mailing to butters was included. I don't know if the commission did receive that or not. Also noted that the plan was not stamped, being an RDA, that commission has discretion as far as what they want to accept for plans. So that's for the commission to discuss. And just one other thing that was noted as exemption. Let's see, presumption shall apply for installation of a septic system, a Title V septic system. There's an exemption that is noted in the narrative. I just want to note that that exemption applies to the discharge from the septic system, but not to the actual construction of the septic system. So the construction work would not be included in that presumption under the Title V exemption. And that's it for my comments.
Okay. How about you, Kim? Do you have anything? I'm wondering, as you comment, if there's anything here in regards to that we can do with the RDA for PIBs on the tree line there, given that we didn't know the wetland buffer was there and had to stop construction.
Through the chair?
Yes.
Yeah, that was one of my comments as well, is can we get some PIBs? They're probably going to have to be on the property line, along the property line here, but that still might be a good visual barrier moving forward. And then my last question for the applicant is, what is your dewatering protocol moving forward?
I can answer to both of those. As an applicant team, we were happy to install PIBs. I think that's a great idea for the property. There's anticipated to be future work on the site under a separate application in the future, so we're happy to install that. At this point, I have not been given a dewatering plan by the on-site crew, but I'm happy to provide that prior to this work resuming.
Yeah, I would just add that it's very important that the on-site crew understands the proper dewatering protocols.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Does anyone else from the commission have any questions or comments? No. Okay. So I think we can go ahead and take a vote. Isn't looking for a motion for a negative determination. And Kim, do we need to incorporate any of those conditions with an RDA, or you'll
Yep.
take
You
care of
want
those?
to, I'll take care of them. -3. So negative RDA with conditions, and I'll throw in the PIBs along the property line and dewatering protocols prior to start of construction.
Okay.
I'm happy to make that motion.
Can I
Second.
get a second from Matt? All right, do the roll call. Ted,
Aye.
Jim,
Aye.
Matt,
Aye.
Ed,
Aye.
and myself am an I.
Through the chair,
Yes.
could I also get an authorization for a signature page, please?
Yes. Can
I'll
that's
make that motion.
yeah.
Second.
All right. And the roll call again. Ted,
Aye.
Jim,
Yes, aye.
Ed,
Aye.
Matt,
Aye.
and I am an I. Okay, so all set.
Perfect.
Good
Thank
luck.
you all.
Thanks. All right, we'll move right along to our continued hearings. Town of Hopkinton, 90-104 Hayden Row, notice of intent continuation. Do we have someone on the call for this?
Hi, good evening. Yes, Claire Hogeboom, wetland scientist with LEC Environmental Consultants representing the applicant.
Hello.
Hi. So I'll just keep it brief. We submitted an initial response addressing peer review comments that were provided by Lucas Environmental. That memorandum was dated April 5th, and that included some responses to comments provided by the Conservation Commission at the April 9th public hearing where we last presented the project. That initial peer review response excluded some comments and requests for information on the stormwater, as we were still waiting on peer review comments for stormwater in relation to the planning board's site plan review as well. So we ultimately wanted to get this initial review response into the commission just to knock out as many comments as we could in the meantime. We have since received the stormwater peer review comments about a week and a half ago, maybe a little less. So the team is working on preparing responses to that and revising plans to address those comments. So prior to the next meeting with the Conservation Commission, the team intends to prepare a second peer review response report that includes responses to all of the stormwater peer review comments, as well as comments provided by the commission at the last public hearing. It'll include responses to DEP comments. We had 3 that were all related to stormwater as well. And of course, that'll all include revised plans that show any stormwater changes, in addition to, I believe the commission asked for PIB locations and some educational signage around stormwater features and along buffers, and a few other items as well. So since we provided that initial response, we did receive a memorandum from Lucas Environmental dated May 16th, indicating that many of the comments were addressed satisfactorily that we provided in that initial response. One somewhat outstanding item remained in regard to how the contractor will remove an invasive species that is within our proposed restoration area. We have a small patch of autumn olive located in that area. So at the moment, we're proposing, just mechanically remove the plant itself, the root system as well, bag it and dispose of it off-site. So no on-site disposal of that. And knowing that the sort of seed dispersal of that species happens around autumn, mid to late fall, ideally we would be doing that, prior to August when that happens. So our intention would be to include a specific note related to that removal methodology in the landscape plans in our revised plan as well. And we also just had, post-construction monitoring protocols for that invasive species outlined in our initial narrative submittal. So that'll be included in our post-construction monitoring of the restoration area overall to ensure that if any invasive species do recolonize, that they will be, removed appropriately and continued to be monitored. And one last item I just wanted to put out to the commission, since we are all here discussing this project ahead of the final revisions. Through the site plan review, the project team was asked by the planning board to prepare a snow storage plan. And for the most part, Sammy Otis, the civil engineer, has been sketching out areas to place snow around the site. Oh, that's a perfect plan. Thank you, Kim. Oh, yeah, that one. The one area in particular that we're having a little trouble with finding appropriate area for snow storage is to the west of the parking lot expansion, sort of between the parking lot and the athletic field. That area in particular, I think, is the best location that we found, because an alternate location would have been just to the north, and that's, our restoration area. We're going to place a lot of really nice plantings there and improve that area within riverfront area and buffer zone. So the area directly to the west of the parking lot expansion is also within riverfront area partially, and a little partially within the 100-foot buffer zone. But that is existing manicured lawn. So I just wanted to put that out to the commission while we're talking about this here today, before we finalize the plans for planning board and commission, just to, gauge your input on allowing a snow storage area to be located in that area. So with that, I'm happy to take any questions, and many team members are in attendance tonight. If you have any questions, we have Chris Eberly with Vertex, Claudia Ponce de Leon with Sammy Otis, the civil engineers joining, Ashley Collion with Traverse, our landscape architect. We have Rob Blanchard with Commodore, the contractor, and Tim Person from the town of Hopkinton is here as well. So plenty of folks to answer questions if you have any others.
Okay.
Through the chair, if I could just add in with the snow storage, the DPW does do snow removal at the schools if the piles become too high as well. So just keep that in mind as we're moving forward, or if there's questions on that.
Okay. I think for myself, as far as snow storage goes, I would, as long as it's in the manicured lawn area, and that's what's designated, and if it starts to exceed that, it gets taken off site. I'm not opposed to using that as snow storage. Then any other commission members have any thoughts on that?
Through the chair, I have a thought. I assume that parking lot is going to be salted as well, which means the snow storage is also going to contain salt. And I assume that the contour lines have melting water going north into the wetlands. So that actually concerns me a little bit. I don't know what the answer is, but it concerns me a little bit to have piles of melting salt snow right there, and whatever else is scooped up from the pavement.
Mm-hmm.
Through the chair, could the project team help us better understand where snow storage is done today at Hopkins School, and what other areas are being considered for snow storage as part of this project?
It's funny you should mention it. It's been so long since we've got snow. So I think typically what happens is we'll pile it we'll steal a couple parking spaces, pile it there. And then again, the DPW comes in and removes it when they're doing their snow removal routes through town. So it typically sits there for potentially a couple of days up to a week, depending on what kind of storm we got. And then they come through and scoop it all out at night and bring it to wherever they bring it to or melting. So typically it's staying in the parking lot and stealing a couple spaces.
Through the chair. And are we adding parking spaces in total, or are we losing with the big parking lot by the athletic field being cut down significantly?
We are adding parking spaces through this project. I can find that number if you just give me a couple of minutes and we can jump to another topic while I dig for that. But I believe we might be adding somewhere in the high 20s, low 30s of parking spaces for this project.
I don't, for myself, through the chair, I don't need an exact number. It sounds to me like I would rather keep the current plan then. I live in that neighborhood. I know it doesn't take long for the DPW to come scoop up snow. If we're adding that many parking spaces, I'd rather the snow melt in the pavement and then have storm drains deal with it than have it possibly melt into the wetlands.
Okay.
Unless there's a current problem with the current system. Like if that's causing huge issues, but even so, if we're adding 20 to 30 spots, taking up 3 or 4 for a pile of snow on the few occasions we get snow, seems like it ought to be workable.
Okay, we'll take that into consideration.
Through the chair, just one other quick thing to add about potentially keeping the snow on the pavement. Certainly a benefit for any debris that gets picked up with the snow, but the salt is either going to run through a pipe down to the wetland or it's going to run overland through the wetland. I think we want to also be sensitive to the safety of the students that are going to be navigating around the site. So if we do continue to pile snow on the paved area, it's important that we put thought into a location that doesn't create a pedestrian hazard for those couple of days before the snow is removed.
Yeah, I would say typically in a plowing operation, we're probably putting it into the closest kind of corner type of thing, you know, trying to keep it as compact as possible to take up the least amount of parking spaces and typically out of the way of where pedestrians or children, you know, would be navigating. So we'll keep that in mind as we go through our plowing operations.
Great, appreciate that.
Okay. I guess in what you said that you're working on addressing comments from the stormwater review and other comments. So you're working through those. I don't know, Joe, did you have anything in particular to add at this point in time, or?
No, I think really the one of the few comments that I had remaining was regarding disposal of the invasives, which Claire addressed. And just noting that we haven't yet reviewed the final revised plans, but I think pretty much all of our other comments were addressed.
Okay. And I guess to that, you're addressing the stormwater comments. Claire, did you have anything you wanted to clarify in those peer review comments with the Conservation Commission? I know it ultimately goes to the planning board, but you did get some feedback from us on test pits, I think, in monitoring wells and things like that. So obviously there's an interest from this board as well. So I don't know if there was anything in particular in the peer review that you wanted to throw at us.
I have not had a chance to look thoroughly into the peer review for stormwater. Claudia, I don't know if you have anything to add to that, if there was any elaboration on what the commission had asked for with the test pits, but we did note in our response that Commodore did install 2 monitoring wells within the infiltration basin location. I believe they collected at least 1 reading immediately when they were installed. I'm not certain how many more they're planning to collect, or if they need to collect any more, if they've already collected enough data to understand where the system is going, and that it's an appropriate location. But we're certainly prepared to, elaborate further on the very, brief information we provided in our initial letter in the next one coming up. But Claudia from Samiotis is on the call. I don't know, is there anything else to add, Claudia, from the peer review comments?
Through the chair, my name is Claudia Ponce de Leon with Samiores Consultants. And currently, I don't believe there's anything we would like to clarify, but in our peer review responses, we are going into detail regarding the collaboration we did with Commodore to install the groundwater monitoring wells that are still out there currently. And we were able to confirm that the estimated seasonal high groundwater is more than 2 feet below the bottom of the proposed infiltration system. And we will be including that in our response.
Okay,
That's helpful.
sounds good. Kim, do you have any other, anything else to add on this one?
I do not at this time.
Okay. So I think if the engineering team there is all set, thank you for the update.
Through the chair.
Yep.
As you all likely know, this came before town meeting and appears to be headed towards being funded as part of the ballot vote. We are working towards a plan to try and begin some enabling work this summer that would begin to expand the parking lot with the hope of having that move forward as early as July. Could the committee speak to any steps that we can take to ensure that when we come before you again in your next meeting, I think it's in early June, what you'd like to see from us to be prepared to take action at that point so that we can hopefully come to a close in this process and have our notice of intent issued. Just trying to understand the timing so that we can factor that into the broader project schedule and get this moving.
Sure. I think, well, our next meeting is June 11th. I don't know if you'll have your comments resolved before then, that we could continue to that meeting or not, in your interest of time. But I guess the biggest thing would be, I think, the stormwater responses, and if there's
I
anything.
know Semiotis plans to address the stormwater responses this Friday, and our next meeting with the planning board is on the 3rd, so we expect that gives them time to review the stormwater responses. And I know we've already met with that peer reviewer to establish to respond to their comments informally and make sure that our follow-up package addresses their questions as comprehensively as possible. So I expect that that will be largely addressed by the time that we get to the June 3rd meeting planning board.
Okay. Kim, do you have anything that you need on your end or would be looking for?
Yeah, just what we discussed with Claire. So the statement or addition of some kind of invasive species plan for that mitigation area. And then like you said, we're waiting on the stormwater comments to make sure that is all clear. If we close on June 11th, our next meeting, Conservation Commission meeting is June 11th, then the team can expect to have a permit in their hands by the end of the week on June 26th, like the week of June 24th. So you'd have it right before July 1st.
Okay. We'll certainly make that a goal of the team to answer as comprehensively as possible.
Okay.
One last question. Will the permit include the full order of conditions, or is there a period of time where that's drafted and has a review process?
That includes the draft and review process. So you should be permit in hand, like I said, by the very end of June. There is a 10-day appeal period. I'm sure you're aware of. It's a work at your own risk deal.
And that's from the 24th.
That's from the date that we issue you the order.
Okay.
All right. So we will look forward to seeing you on June 11th.
Yes, we would like to continue to June 11th.
Okay.
Through the chair.
Yes.
Can the commission please vote to continue the hearing to June 11th?
I will make a motion to continue the hearing to June 11th.
I have a second. All right. Ted,
Aye.
Jim,
Aye.
Ed,
Aye.
Matt,
Aye.
and I'm an aye.
Thank you very much. Have a great evening.
Thanks.
Thanks, everyone.
All right, next up we have open play. 0 East Main Street, notice of intent continuation. Commercial building, recreational sports court. I believe that last time we just opened this and continued it right away, so I don't think we got any background yet.
That's right, because we didn't quite get the comments from Lucas at that time.
Okay.
But now we have, and we have an opportunity to respond to that as well. So my name is Yev. It's a brand new construction, and I'm planning to buy a piece of land and build a pickleball and paddle club with 19 courts. Some of them are going to be indoors, and some of them are going to be outdoors. 3 courts up north and 6 courts down south. And I invited to this meeting a couple of people who helped me draft an LI, Mitch and Matt also, who helped me put together site plan and stormwater management. So I would like to pass the word to Mitch to present the comments and the response to comments from the peer review.
Sure. Yeah, thanks for the intro, Yev. So Mitch Maslanka with Goddard Consulting, wetland scientist. So I helped Yev put together the notice of intent for the proposed building and paddleball court facilities. So just to give you some background on the site, this the site is adjacent to the retirement living area off to the right side of that plan. And where this building and parking and paddle court area is proposed is in a large field adjacent to that retirement living area. And it's currently utilized as a mowed area for a leaching field. And then other portions of the site are regularly mowed in a meadow habitat area. And then as you get closer to the wetlands, which are shown off to the top left corner of the screen, those are our wetlands. Oh, thank you. Perfect. So as you can see, that green area is a wetland connection from north of East Main Street, comes a stream and then goes under the road and then enters our site, goes through some forested wetlands, and then down towards the left side of the screen goes through a wet meadow area, and then eventually leaves the site off to the bottom left corner of the site. So you can see the majority of the area that the building is proposed and the paddleball courts are proposed is in an already disturbed area. Majority of it, like I said, is lawn. Underneath there is the leaching field, and then other portions are meadow habitat. So off to the top right of the screen, you can see that's where the entrance is going to be. It's a shared driveway with the retirement living area. And then that'll eventually connect in to the facility's own driveway and then parking spaces down at the bottom right of our site. Then to the left of our parking area, that's where 6 pickleball / paddle courts will be proposed. So people can go in there and play their games. And then off to the left of those courts, we have a fence, and then we're going to have a line of trees, which we can get to the landscape plan in a bit. And then to the left of that rectangular looking polygon is a subsurface infiltration system, which will manage the stormwater runoff from the impervious surfaces of the site. Just up to the plan north and east, we also have another part of the stormwater system, a surface infiltration basin, which will also be assisting in managing the stormwater runoff. And then furthest plan south is another aspect of our stormwater management in more linear fashion, going parallel to the bottom property boundary down there. So up at the top right, we also have a couple outdoor pickleball courts shown there. The one in the top left is in the buffer zone between the 75 and 100-foot buffer zone to the bordering vegetated wetlands. So additionally, within the buffer zones, we have the proposed building. That top left corner of it is sticking into the 75 to 100-foot buffer zone. As far as impacts closer to the wetlands between the 75 and 50-foot buffer zone are where the stormwater management features are, which under the Hopkinton bylaw, the stormwater management features are allowed between that 50 and 75 feet. So that's why we have those proposed there. But there's a lot of open space that the development takes advantage of to reduce our impacts in the buffer zone as much as possible. No impacts within the 50-foot buffer zone. So that's a big plus. No structures proposed in the 75-foot. So between the 75-foot and 100, that's where we have some pickleball courts proposed, the corner of the building, and some stormwater management. Also, to mitigate impacts to the 50 to 100-foot buffer zone, we're taking advantage of the existing meadow habitat, and we're going to replicate that in a way over the subsurface infiltration system down at the bottom left of the screen there. So that area, once the system's installed, will be seeded with a New England wildlife conservation seed mix so that the area can be naturalized on top of it and just be mowed maybe once or twice a year to keep it in a meadow habitat. And like I said before, that area will be separated from the pickleball courts by a row of evergreen shrubs. Right now they're proposed as white fir evergreens. There's additional plantings elsewhere in the buffer zone between the buildings and the wetlands as well. So there's several white pine trees and several red maple trees proposed as a mitigation measure for our impacts within the buffer zone as well. So I think that gives a pretty good overview of the project. We did receive comments from Lucas Environmental, which we appreciated. We read through it, had some discussions internally with the team, and then just shot over a very brief response letter today. I feel like we don't really need to go through everything. There's a few documents Lucas requested. I'm happy to provide those. As far as plan revisions, we can go through a couple of those and have some discussions like about the permanent immovable barriers, which I know Hopkinton usually requests for projects. And so maybe I'll let Joe from Lucas kind of chime in with any of his main comments that he wants to. But before that, I just want to maybe ask Matt if there's anything, Matt Leidner from our team, the civil engineer, if he has anything to add about the stormwater before we move on.
I think you covered it fairly well. Matt Leidner, Civil Design Group. Good evening, everybody. No, I think Mitch, you covered it fairly well. Of course, if there's any specific questions, I'm happy to go into any aspects of it in detail.
Great, thanks, Matt. So yeah, Joe, do you want to go through some of your main comments and we can kind of comment on those for you?
Through the chair, would you like me to go through my comment?
Yeah, I don't know if you got a chance to look at our letter. I don't necessarily expect you did today, but if you want to go through whatever comments you feel.
Sure, and I did have a chance to look over the response, not in detail, but I did have a chance to look at it. So, and I think a lot of my initial comments were addressed as far as indicating that revisions will be submitted. So as Mitch had mentioned, there were a couple of document issues, missing documents. The affidavit of service was not included, and the WPA form was an older version. So they've indicated that they will revise those and submit. I did recommend, I noted that there were some invasive species mentioned in the project narrative. And I would recommend that the construction phase invasive species mitigation and monitoring plan also be submitted for the mitigation area. I had noted that there appeared to be a fence located at the southern portion of the property, which appeared to be within the 75-foot no structure zone. Based on the responses I received today, it appears that the buffer zone lines were mislabeled, and the fence actually remains outside the 75-foot no build, no structure zone. The project is proposing the meadow mitigation area. I recommended that some additional detail be provided regarding the area of meadow that's being disturbed and the relative to the area that is being proposed for mitigation. I recommended that the plans include locations of any proposed temporary stormwater measures, such as construction phase sediment basins or stockpile locations. The applicant indicated that that will be included as part of the SWIP. I recommended that the sequence after the construction sequence plan that was submitted be included on the site plans. It was noted that those would be added. Mitch had mentioned that they're proposing a line of white fir along the edge of the proposed work. I had noted that Go Botany webpage indicates white fir as not being native in Massachusetts. The applicant responded that the USDA plants database shows it as native in Massachusetts, which is true. But if you zoom in on that map, it's actually only shown native in Hampton County. It's not shown native anywhere else in Massachusetts. So my recommendation would still be something else other than white fir be proposed in that location. Had noted that no PIBs were noted on the plans, and the commission should discuss what they're looking for PIBs. A couple of minor items where the plans mentioned hay instead of straw, and those are being revised according to the information we just received. And I think that pretty much includes all of our comments.
Okay. Thanks, Joe.
Yeah.
Kim, did you have anything to add for all that?
Yeah, thanks, Melissa. So I did have some preliminary meetings with the applicant and his team, which was really helpful. Thank you. So some things that we went over in those preliminary meetings that I guess I just would still put emphasis on with this site. The PIBs and obviously having that discussion, but also stormwater out here. So I believe it's Weston and Sampson is contracted under the planning board to provide a stormwater review. So when we receive that, that's definitely something that we also will want to take a look at. This site is definitely unique because of the leaching field that is under a lot of the upland area. You can kind of see it here. It's roughly in this location. So the existence of the leaching field really limits the drainage infrastructure that can be installed. So what the applicant is proposing is that runoff flow southerly into a swale, kind of an open swale, and then it flows into the subsurface Coltech system. So my concern and my emphasis, I guess, is that I want to make sure that the operations and maintenance plan is robust, such that we don't have any issues with this swale not being maintained or backing up, or, you know, transporting excess debris if, for instance, you know, a snowplow comes in and plows into it, kind of thing. And then the other item that I want to emphasize is that this infiltration basin should not be used as a construction period BMP, construction period. Detention should not flow to it. That being said, you know, I'm sure that the site has a really great infiltration rate, which we'll confirm soon because of the placement of the leaching fields, but there's not a ton of other room on the site for temporary construction BMPs. So I think it's important to include that in any kind of phasing plan or erosion and sedimentation control plan where we're going to put temporary BMP structures for runoff. And that being said, I would love to see the SWIP or erosion control plan ahead of issuing the order, because I'm not saying this is going to happen, but sometimes when we receive SWIPs at the point of the pre-construction meeting, they're not always, sometimes they're done a little hastily. So I would love if we could have that information ahead of time, just to kind of tease out a little bit more thoughtfulness.
Yep. Oh, that makes sense. Okay. Yeah, so are there any catch basins or collection system, you know, on the site? I saw a detail for a catch basin, but
yeah, so in the driveway, I don't know if you can zoom in, Kim. Yep, there's a couple there.
Okay. Yep. So those three.
Matt, would it make sense for you to address some of Kim's comments? Because we did update the stormwater management plan with operations and maintenance guidelines as per your Kim recommendations, and also for snow management. And so we added some additional guidelines that we're going to be following.
Right. So, just to add to what Mitch just said about the catch basins first. Yeah. So there are some catch basins in the driveway up there, as well as a yard drain up to the north of the building. But to just reiterate what Kim had mentioned, due to the presence of the existing leach field beneath the parking lot and the 6 courts to the left of the parking lot, that limits our ability to use a traditional, you know, catch basin structure and pipe system to drain that area, which is why we're proposing that those areas sheet flow to the south and then get intercepted by that conveyance swale along the bottom, right, and then get picked up, treated, and brought into the infiltration system. So while there are some catch basins on site, there are not as many as you would probably typically, you know, associate with this type of development with a parking lot. And that's because of that leach field. As far as the O&M plan, so the stormwater management report that was submitted with as part of this project includes an O&M plan. I thought we had captured the comments that and the feedback that we received preliminarily at the meetings that we did have with Kim. But certainly, if there's anything else that we missed that should be in there, we can certainly update that and submit an updated version. I think it's a robust O&M plan. We've provided the maintenance access ways to get to the infiltration systems, both the subsurface and the above ground basin to the left of the building, as well as the treatment areas that pre-treat the water before it gets into those systems. Snow management is addressed in the O&M, but also on the plan here. The row of parking spaces furthest to the left on this plan, that's sort of abut the 6 padel courts, right? Those are where we are proposing to place snow. And the reason being, we're able to do that in the parking lot because in the wintertime when it's snowing, those outdoor courts will not be utilized. So there will not be as much demand for parking. So we're able to use a portion of the parking for snow storage. And the good thing about that, but it's required, but and provided is that it will undergo, the snow melt water will undergo the full treatment system of the stormwater management that's proposed. So it won't, it's not proposed in areas that could bypass that system. It will go through the system and get fully treated. Also, there's to the north of the building, the runoff from the 3 pickleball courts is proposed to undergo pre-treatment through a vegetated filter strip. And one of the comments at our pre-application meeting was to label that so it's documented on a plan or on the plan that it is a treatment area. So that is labeled on there to ensure that that does get maintained accordingly. So if there's any other specific questions, I'd be happy to try to address those.
Okay.
Through the chair.
Yep, go ahead, Kim.
I apologize, Matt. I have not re-reviewed the O&M plan, so I will do so ahead of our next meeting and make sure that I can get it if I have any additional comments.
Okay, very good. Yeah, and we're happy to work with you to address those if there are any more.
Thank you.
I don't know if we want to talk about the PIB for a minute. There's none proposed at the moment, right? By the applicant.
Correct. Yeah, we didn't show any on the plans.
Okay. Kim, can you go down to I think it's the last sheet and it kind of has an aerial behind it. So I'm curious to see what others think, but obviously there's a big space that I guess the concern would be landscapers potentially over zealously mowing. Into the buffer zone and I don't see a lot of trees to where there would potentially be a PIB line. Also, whether anyone on the commission has comments as far as the extent of the development on the site in relation to the buffer zone lines where that PIB should land. I don't think the PIB should be, I think it should be outside of the stormwater infrastructure, infiltration system and basin.
Yeah, Melissa, I agree. I think, ideally, toe slope. It sounds like from what I was hearing earlier, there's some proposed plantings. I don't know what the plan is for that first 50 feet of the buffer area, if that's going to remain as is today and just allowed to grow in, or if there's plans to maintain that going forward. But if that's going to be left to grow in, I think we want our PIBs right along that toe slope. So it's clear as landscapers are coming through, like you said, that they're not overzealously mowing down to the wetland edge. whether that means we suggest a few larger tree plantings along that line where we can hang the PIVs or some other measure. I don't know what the best approach is, but that's my feeling on it.
Through the chair, this is Ed.
Yes, Ed.
Yeah, the buffer zone, intrusions into the buffer zone are one concern, but my bigger curiosity is that we're creating surface over an off-site leach field, if I understand this correctly. So the leaching field is for the housing old folks operation next door? Or do I misinterpret?
Through the chair, Roy McDowell, if I could speak to that, please.
Sure.
Okay, the leaching field is part of the overall Legacy Farms development. We have 3 or 4 of these located in various locations. So this is not just for the senior living, it's for a good portion of the housing throughout the development, as we do have other fields as well. And we've been working very closely. We do have the right to do this vis-a-vis DEP on top of these fields, because the fields were constructed originally with H20 loading, which would allow this type of use on top. So it's not really any specific piece of the property, but generally one of about 4 leaching fields that we have.
So to continue my question then, is this a precedent setting where we're doing something like this? Or is it really limited to these parcels that Mr. McDowell just outlined?
Well, if I could, I would say that this is done quite frequently over leaching fields, and that's why DEP does approve it if the fields were constructed to take this into account.
Okay.
Through the chair.
Yes, Ted.
I echo Ed as far as buffer zone incursion, and I wonder how much of it is necessary. But I'm curious about the mitigation, the suggested mitigation that on top of the subsurface infiltration that there would be some plantings. What's there right now? Isn't that meadow right now?
So it's a mixture of meadow and lawn space. And I think this is kind of what Joe was getting at is, where does that lawn space end and how much meadow space are you guys going to be impacting? So I did do a walk along those buffer zone lines, and the meadow stops about at the so I'm looking over at the bar plan left at the subsurface infiltration system. So the meadow stops somewhere between the 75 and 100 foot buffer zone there. So there is going to be some meadow space that's impacted. And just to comment on the condition of the meadow space, it's very it has a lot of invasive species. It has oriental bittersweet, it has autumn olive popping through. It does have some native species. It has the blackberry, the raspberry. There's a couple of aspen species coming through. So if the area was let to go, it would probably take a few more years to develop into a young successional forest. But I think it would make sense for us to just provide just a little sketch showing where that meadow space begins and ends. And I don't know if Kim actually has availability to go back to that Mass Mapper aerial, because that can kind of show better where the lawn ends and where the meadow begins. As far as the top portion of the site goes, all the pickleball courts up there and even the vegetated swale will just be within existing lawn area. That area isn't maintained as meadow up there. Yep. And then as you go down, you can kind of see this curvy line going in the center of the site there. Yeah, so that is actually to the bottom. Yeah, that's our line right there between lawn and meadow. And that white pine tree there, that's going to be our only tree that's impacted. That guy is just barely going to get clipped by the construction needed for the subsurface infiltration system. So you can see there's probably a 15-foot swath of meadow that'll be impacted throughout the that bottom left corner up until the middle of the site.
So I guess my comment is maybe I'd like to hear more numbers, but it doesn't feel like mitigation if meadow is being removed and then replaced. That feels like trying to recreate what was destroyed. And when I look at all of the buffer zone incursions all along the development, whether it's lawn or not, those kind of incursions to build pickleball courts versus other types of building we might have give me pause. I'm not a designer of a pickleball development place, but I'm curious, if we look at the set of 6 pickleball courts to the furthest south, I'm looking at one of those last pictures that you guys had up, that exactly. Why is there so much space between the north and south pickleball courts there, but it's not necessary on the northern 3? It seems to me if you squish them together a little better, then you get rid of some buffer zone incursion.
That's
problematic.
For the chair, may I address that?
Sure.
So it's again. It's a really good observation, and it would be true if at the bottom it was these 6 courts were pickleball courts. These are not pickleball courts. These are paddle courts. The club that I'm building has 2 different sports. One is pickleball, the other one is paddle. The courts for the paddle are a little bit larger, and as part of the play, the ball can get out from the court, and people on the other side could run out and bring the ball back. So we couldn't really squish them together because that would hinder the play. And maybe Matt can also talk about the design solutions that we had to make kind of from the stormwater management perspective. That's another reason why we spaced them out.
Yeah.
Matt?
Yes. So spacing between the courts, sort of left to right, is related to stormwater management because, again, these are over top of the leach field, and so we need to have a conveyance system to get the water to sheet flow and drain from north to south. So we need some space between the courts in order to do that. As far as the spacing between them, the north to south, a bigger gap between them, that really was a function of really, I think your operation and what you wanted to achieve in that area. So I can't say that's necessarily stormwater related. I think it's best if you speak to that spacing.
Yeah. So there were two reasons why we created that space. One of the reasons actually is related to the leaching field, right? Because there is a slight slope to the space, but the leaching field itself is completely kind of parallel, like completely flat, right? And you need to have certain amount of coverage on top of the leaching field from 2 to 3 feet, if I remember correctly, right? So if we space them the way how we did, it allows a slight slope to be created, and that would be ADA compliant. If they were close, that would create a step potentially. So it would be difficult for people with disabilities to access those lower courts. And it would create kind of bigger discrepancy between the various areas above the pipes of the leaching field itself, right? And we needed to maintain this 2 to 3 feet everywhere.
Thanks, that's helpful. If I may, through the chair, One other option might be have 5 paddle ball courts or paddle courts, and that gives more room for mitigation to make the other mitigation area a little bit more acceptable, perhaps, and gives more room for PIBs further from the actual border of the wetland. So generally, my worry is how much buffer zone incursion, whether it's previously disturbed or not, it's not the same as, I don't know, a playground or a parking lot previously disturbed. There is some naturalness going on that's going to disappear. So anyway, those are my thoughts at this point.
Okay. Thanks, Ted.
Through the chair, I'd like to respond as well. Why 6 courts is critical actually for the club's operations.
Okay.
Through the chair, Roy McDowell, if I can respond to the concern about incursion into the buffer zone.
Yep.
So it's a very good question. And many times we've seen where something like this is built and all of a sudden somebody's mowing that whole field to the west. And I know the town doesn't want that. So a previous project we had approved through a Concom was about every 30 feet along the perimeter of that edge, we put a wooden post, a 4x4 wooden post sticking out of the ground about 2 feet. And it was some little tiny little signs on them that say, do not mow or disturb in this area around that entire perimeter all the way to East Main Street. So everyone is always aware that you can't touch that zone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's definitely something that we'll look for to be added to the plan and proposed. And the beefier, the better, I think, as the commission has found out over the years on the PIB. I want to, we're going to have to move on. I think we got a few more things on the agenda, and we still have the stormwater review, that needs to be worked through and get comments back on. One quick question, I think maybe for Kim or Roy is, was there any limit of disturbance established from the legacy development on the site?
Actually, the original permit allowed us to build a building almost about twice this size. I think it's over 45,000 square feet.
Okay.
Through the chair?
Yes, Kim.
That's an excellent question. I can definitely, look up the old files and confirm what Mr. McDowell just shared.
I guess it would be more. Yeah, I guess it would be more now that the septic system was built in that approval. Like, was there a line associated with that?
And the other question that I have too is single and complete projects, cumulative buffer zone impacts. So I know that there is some language in our bylaw about common development. I'm not sure yet if this applies, but it's something that I should probably look into the history a little bit of. So I can certainly do that for our next hearing.
Okay. That sounds good. So I think if it's okay with the applicant, then we'd see if you want to request a continuation to the June 11th meeting, or
yeah, through the chair, I'd like to respond real quickly about the need for 6 courts at the bottom from business perspective, so you can have an understanding and appreciate that. So there are very, very few facilities that offer 6 paddle courts, and that actually allows high-level national and even international tournaments to be hosted. 5 courts wouldn't be sufficient for that. So with 6 courts, we could invite literally #1 players in the world to play on these courts and tournaments. So that would be really beneficial for the town and for the club and for promotion of the sport. Just wanted to share that.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate that.
But in response to yeah, of course, and in response to the question, of course, let's continue on June 11th.
So June 11th. Okay. Can I get a motion from someone?
I'll make the motion to continue.
I'll second.
All right. All in favor, Ted,
Aye.
Jim,
Aye.
Ed, Ed,
Looks like he stepped away.
okay. Matt,
Aye.
and I'm an aye.
Thank you, Commission.
Yeah. Okay. Next up, we have the Mass Laborers Training Trust Fund, 37 East Street. Notice of intent continuation. Do we have anyone on the call? from the
Yes.
labor?
Hi there. Good evening. Ryan Rosine with Goddard Consulting.
Hey.
Hey, so I think while Kim pulls up the latest plan that we submitted, I can sort of just briefly go through what since the last meeting. So we did respond to Lucas Environmental's comments. We did make a number of minor plan changes that were requested in that letter. As you'll see in just a second on the plan, we did add some stuff. So we still have, that drainage area going down to that area. We are proposing to put in 4 new red maples because 4 healthy pine trees are being removed. So we are mitigating for that. In addition to that, I think the biggest thing that the commission asked for last time was a cumulative riverfront numbers for the entirety of the site, since there's a lot of projects and everything going around. So we did have our engineer provide those numbers for us and to prove compliance with the redevelopment standards. I'm not sure if Lucas had a chance to review the revised materials that we sent in last week or not, but we are actually proposing 170 square feet of riverfront mitigation. As you can see on that plan, it's sort of that shaded area directly adjacent, just to the right of the proposed drainage pipe and outfall. So that basically accounts for 1 tree, 2 shrubs, and a wildlife conservation seed mix in that area. And just to reiterate, so the entirety of the project, especially on the south western side of the road there, is a overall decrease in impervious surfaces within riverfront area, about 530 square feet. And then we are improving the stormwater management. I mean, this is a stormwater management plan. And there is that detail there for the riprap apron, which is one of the things that was asked for as a detail for that. And I think the other main thing was, looking at other possibilities for removing or moving the location of the drainage pipe in there's the drainage structure in all. So as you remember, we first did this as an RDA where the pipe went basically along, that northeast side of the roadway, almost all the way down to where the bridge is located, right up to the river's edge. So we pulled that back in this iteration of the plan. The only other option that the engineer said would, be feasible, but is not a practical alternative for this, and I'll get into it in just a second, is to put in a surface stormwater basin in that area. But that would require a much larger surface area of disturbance. We'd have to do more work in the buffer zone and more work in the riverfront area and take down more trees. And so for that greater disturbance, we decided to stick with this plan as you see here. It's pretty minor in impacts, and we believe that we're fully mitigating those impacts. So I'll just keep it at that. And if there's other questions or comments from the commission, I'd be happy to answer those.
Okay. Joe, were your comments addressed, or did you have anything that you wanted to bring up?
Yeah, I did have a chance to look over the responses. Didn't have a chance to respond formally. And I think many of our comments were addressed. A couple of things I just wanted to note. Regarding the riverfront area analysis that was provided as far as disturbance on the site. The 1 site, 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 1 I think it would be helpful to have a little more detail in there as far as what was disturbed, if it was a breakdown of developed areas, degraded areas, and undeveloped areas. Just because if you look at the numbers that they provided as far as the overall site development alteration within the riverfront area, given the numbers that they are providing, it's over 13%, which is over the 10%. And I don't think that was previously presented as being over 10% in some of the previous filings. I think part of that may be that a lot of the work that occurred was in degraded areas, either paved or gravel roadways, and that may be being lumped in with the alteration numbers here. I don't know. But I think just some additional breakdown of the areas that were disturbed would be helpful for this and moving forward for, anything else that might happen or be proposed on the site. Let's see. I did have a question on, I know they described that there's 530 square feet of degraded area that's going to be converted to lawn, and I couldn't find that on the plan. I'm just maybe overlooking it, but I wonder if that could be pointed out just in where that's happening. Also, there's in one of the responses, they talk about degraded area and altered area. Again, not necessarily the same thing. Degraded being those areas that are impervious or devoid of topsoil. Altered could be developed. So just some additional detail and breakdown on what's been done on site in those categories would be helpful. And I think that's pretty much my main comments based on my initial review of the responses that were submitted.
Okay. Tim, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, agreeing with Joe, essentially. So Joe and I did have a conversation about the riverfront area calculations this afternoon. We connected about, riverfront area impacts, cumulative impacts, previously developed riverfront area, and kind of what we were expecting to see. So the numbers that the applicant provided did result in 13% total impact of riverfront area on the site, which does exceed the 10% threshold. I do expect that a lot of that area was degraded, but with the way it's currently broken out, it's not specified for us clearly. So I'm still kind of in the camp where I would really, for our information moving forward with this applicant and all the projects on the site, would really love to clearly understand what the impact numbers are in riverfront area per the regulatory definitions, like what percent or what square footage is degraded, what square footage is altered, what square footage is actually previously developed, meaning it's devoid or absent of topsoil. So for me, that's still kind of an important detail that I think just needs to be extrapolated. Again, I think that they are going to meet the performance standards based on my knowledge of the existing conditions at the site that have existed for many, many years. But that information is going to be something that we need as we move forward.
Okay. It sounds like it would be hard to close it out having that 13% unidentified tonight. Otherwise, does anyone else have any comments, questions? I think the plan looks improved with the plantings and the pullback on the structure to me.
Through the chair, just a quick refresher. I don't know a lot on this one. Can the applicant clarify where we sit relative to this project specifically? Is this a net reduction in riverfront area impact, and what's the breakdown if so?
Yeah, so currently, so to go back to Joe's first comment about the lawn area being so decrease in impervious surface and all for this section of the project. There was a graphic in the last meeting, and that was providing the NOI side by side of this area shown with red and an area shown in yellow, and that was sort of the area that showed the decrease in impervious surface. Yeah, see, there you go. So that area right there that's marked on the right hand side in 530. So that area that's currently part of the driveway is going to be lawn. So that's where that comes from. So that's one of the net decreases of impervious within riverfront area for this project. The outfall to the stormwater basin is a slight, has a slight amount of impervious surface, about 68 square feet, which is what we're mitigating for with that 170 square feet. We're doing actually 2.5 to 1 ratio. So I do think that even though we don't have the exact numbers as you would like them to be broken down, which we don't have a problem providing for that. I would ask the commission to consider, we are providing the mitigation for that, even if it is over the 10%, we are providing the mitigation. And that if, the possibility of possibly closing tonight, while after that providing, the detailed breakdown for the entirety of the site, which we can provide. And then that sort of will be a much clearer picture of the, what you were talking about, degraded versus previously altered, and that sort of work and for the whole site. Does that help answer your question, Matt, or are you looking for something more specific?
Nope, that helps. I just needed a little refresh on where we were in terms of impacts. Through the chair, Kim, I don't mean to put you on the spot here, so I'm going to apologize in advance. From your perspective, are the numbers in terms of the footprint of the numbers adequate, and we're really just looking for a breakdown of how those areas fit with the definitions? Or are we uncomfortable with the actual area that they've provided in terms of the riverfront? Does that make sense?
I think I can try to answer that. So,
okay.
As it stands, the applicant has provided impact numbers that indicate that they are over the threshold.
Yeah.
I don't think that in actuality they are, because a lot of that is quote unquote degraded, meaning it was already impervious surface before the time that the act, there's a date in the act, I don't know if it's like 96 or 83. It's old. It's old.
Yeah.
It existed before whatever the regulatory date is. So I don't think that they are over the threshold in reality, but based on the numbers that were presented, they are. That being said, this applicant has many, many projects open with us, and I would not be surprised. In fact, I do know of more projects that they intend to come forward with. And I have been asking for these calculations for several projects. So I just, there's definitely like there's a push forward, next time, next one, keep going, next project kind of pattern. And it gets to a point where I'm wondering if at some point we are going to exceed that threshold. So without getting, the breakdown, I won't know when that happens. And that's my fear.
Okay. I understand where you're coming from. I was just trying to wrap my head around that. So really what it boils down to is we want to have some documentation in hand that confirms this project and other projects moving forward are in compliance with the regulations. Is that a fair way to put it?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and I think, like I said, I think we can provide that. And just going off of that, you know, there might be a good chance that we're below the 10% threshold, in which case we don't need to provide the mitigation that we're currently providing of that 170 square feet. So, I mean, we can still provide that. We can go forward with what we have now, even providing that mitigation, and then give you the, you know, those detailed number breakdown of riverfront stuff, you know, after this, if that would work. I know you said you've been looking for this for a while, but we're just looking to sort of get this closed and get the work going.
All right. So the question being, do we go ahead and close it out, being that they're providing mitigation and reducing pervious area in the riverfront on this particular project, in the good faith that before the next one we get the numbers, or do we want to continue it out again? That's the question to the commission.
Melissa, this is Jim.
Yes, Jim.
I have a question, I guess, for you and Kim. We've not completed our review of applications for the other projects. So it's possible that the other projects could be, you know, changed or modified if those numbers that come in deem necessary. You know, so if we let them go with this, if we approve this, they still have to come back to us for several other projects that may involve mitigation. So we might have to add to those in the future if we were to approve this now. Right?
I think we don't know what we got until we get the breakdown.
Well,
So I don't
I'm
think
inclined.
Yeah.
I'm inclined to say that we need to wait until we get the cumulative numbers
Okay.
of disturbance.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. So is the applicant amenable to continuing to the June 11th with getting those numbers squared away? And the sooner Kim gets them and Joe gets them, the sooner they can comment on them and have some dialogue, so that we could absolutely close it out before the next meeting, rather than getting it, you know, the day before and having to try and review it at the last minute.
Yeah, George Connors is on the call. I would defer to him. I think, you know, he may have some comments on that, or if, you know, we may be good or anything.
Sure, George.
Yeah, okay. We've provided these riverfront analysis numbers on each and every of these projects. The last building to be built in this campus was in 1988, the Koya building. And all the work in that area, including on the other side of the pond where the crane building and the headquarters is going now, it is a driveway system and open fields and work staging areas all around the stream. The utilities that go through the site, and every one of them, water, sewer, drain, electric and communications, and now some fire lines, have a footprint in disturbed roadways, which are either pavement or gravel within the riverfront area. Bob and Gas is a adjudicatory hearing that had decided that any disturbance in the riverfront that puts a pipe underground in a disturbed area doesn't constitute another disturbance. We've talked about the amount of disturbance on this site with respect to these pipes, including when we went down proposing an alternative on Clinton Street, I believe it was, for the gas line. We simply tabulate those. I don't believe for 1 minute that they are disturbances, and I think that's able to be corroborated with the Algonquin gas decision by the adjudicatory hearing officer. The area where the Crane building is, there you have it right there, where the leach field is between it and the river. That was a mined out area. Further to, yeah, right in there. You see that kind of a hatched area with little plus signs all through it? That was that whole area was mined out back in probably the late 70s. And it was planted as a field with a lot of euonymus around and through it. Those have all been removed for this project, as we discussed back in the early days of the campus improvement. So all of the work really in the river zone on this site, with the exception of that little field area there, was in roadways and driveways. The area in that field was a large gravel knoll that was mined out. The material was used elsewhere on the site during the construction of some of those buildings. So it's my position, notwithstanding that we give you this breakdown, because it is work in a, quote, river area, but it's disturbed. I don't think we're anywhere near 10%. The project that we're proposing right now is the pipeline that is going to pick up drainage that heretofore was not ever picked up and treated before it went into the pond or into the Cold Springs Brook at the crossing just below Coya. We discussed that back, I think, in November or maybe December on site, that we would, for the work that was going to take place on the renovations of Coya on the pond, we would be happy to implement some stormwater cleanup and treatment prior to the discharge to an uncontrolled discharge to Cold Spring Brook, which I think this is. It's fairly costly. It has storm scepters. So I really think that, A, we have provided these numbers. B, I'm not sure that they apply with the exemption for not changing the surface of the riverfront area as a practical matter throughout this site. And C, that we are improving drainage in an area that for years has not had anything. It comes all the way from just about where the entrance of the site breaks off in behind the dormitory building. So that whole stretch of driveway from, well, say the pool area down was not captured. Now it is.
Okay. I think we would love to give credit for, these type of things, but I think right now we just have, a number or a table, and I think what we asked for in the last meeting and what would be helpful to kind of finalize this and have a document to move forward with is to provide, the breakdown that's being requested and a graphic that's associated with that, so that it makes Kim and Joe's job easy to see what you're explaining, in one package, and we can just build off of that going forward. I think that's really what we're looking for. And then, we don't have to bring it up all the time. So, what it was, how many square feet it was, and what it turned into. Documenting that is really what the commission's looking for. So it's, not going back through these explanations to try and figure it out, and then you can get credit going forward. So I guess, again, if the applicant's amenable to continuing to June 11th and providing that what it was, how many square feet it was, what it turned into, that type of a breakdown with the associated site-wide plan, then we can stop having to go through this every time we have an application. It'll be a lot smoother, I think, going forward when you do bring projects. Does that work?
You'll have to.
Okay. Can I get a motion from someone to continue to June 11th?
I'll make a motion to continue to June 11th.
And I will second.
I think that was Ted. Give it to Ted. All in favor? Ted?
Aye.
Jim?
Aye.
Ed?
Aye.
Matt?
Aye.
And I'm an aye. And I think just the sooner we can get that in to Kim so she can take a look and provide some feedback. Hopefully at the next hearing, we can just slam dunk this an issue.
Okay, thank you. We'll provide that as soon as we can.
Okay, thanks. All right, next up, we have Wall Street Development, 12 North Mill Street. Continuation on the abbreviated notice of intent notice of resource area delineation, sorry. Kim, do you want to start this one off? Where we're at? I can't remember.
Yes, I can talk to this one. So 2 hearings back, we reviewed the updated plans with Wall Street Development and Goddard. Wall Street Development felt that enough expenditure and time had been devoted to this project, and the commission agreed that they would not have Lucas Environmental back out to the site to review the flags associated with an internal intermittent stream on the site, which is located here. Otherwise, Lucas Environmental and Goddard Consulting, as I understand it, agreed on all of the other BVW boundary flags. Joe, let me know if that's incorrect. So at this point, we are good to close from my understanding. And I'm just going to recommend that we use language, pull it up. I would do a motion to close and issue the ORAD based on the boundary lines reviewed and confirmed by the commission's peer reviewer. And the way that I write the ORADs up, I specifically name the flags that we are confirming. So there should be no confusion as to that aspect.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions, comments, or concerns before we make that motion? This one? Good. Anyone from the public? I don't see any hands or anything. Okay. Would anyone like to make that motion as Kim stated?
I'm happy to make the motion along the verbiage of Kim.
Okay. Can I get a second?
Second.
All right. All in favor, Ted?
Ted is an aye.
Jim? Jim? All right. Ed?
Aye.
Matt?
Aye.
Jim is an aye too, by the way. Sorry.
Jim's an aye, and Melissa is an aye. All right.
Mr. Petrosi will be very happy.
I hope so.
Through the chair.
Signatures, right?
Yes, please.
I make a motion that Kim can sign on behalf of the commissioners.
And I second.
Okay. And all in favor, Ted?
Aye.
Jim?
Aye.
Ed?
My feet are still wet from when I walked it, but I.
Matt?
Aye.
And Melissa's an aye. Okay. So that's all for our hearings. Down to work session items. We got to, I think we're on number 4. Oh, we get Wall Street Development. Number 2. 810-12 Leonard Street, request to waive fees for certificate of compliance. Is Mr. Petrosi on the call for this, or are you taking it, Kim?
I am a little surprised he is not here, but I will take it for him in his absence. So Mr. Petrosi has filed a request to waive fees for certificate of compliances pursuant to the option in our bylaw to make such a request. If you recall, Mr. Petrosi is the developer of addresses 8, 10, and 12 Leonard Street. So he would like to file COCs, and he would like, he is requesting that the consultant's fee of $480 per certificate of compliance be waived, and instead, he is proposing to provide $680. The argument being that the consultant only has to go out to one site, not 3. So that is his ask tonight.
All right. I would say that the commission does not typically waive fees or make modifications to fees that are required. I know that billing is done based on time spent. So I think if there's any cost savings or whatever's not spent on reviewing the certificate of compliance would eventually be returned to him, if that makes sense. So in my mind, I would deny that waiver request. I don't know if anyone else has feelings one way or another.
I just have a question. Have we ever done something like what he's asking for? Because we have a lot of developments where properties are right next to each other.
I don't remember ever doing it or being asked to.
I have not done it in my tenure as agent.
Through the chair, quick question. There are 3 orders, correct? So we would need to issue 3 certificates of compliance, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Then I tend to agree with you, Melissa, that there's really no reduction in work because we are issuing 3 separate certificates of compliance. And if it does prove out that the consultant fee in its entirety is not necessary, then it won't be necessary. But at this time, it's not clear that that's the case.
Okay, do we have to vote on that, Kim, or is that just a...
Let's vote on it just for good measure.
Okay.
Just in case.
Can I get a motion to deny the request for a waiver of fees?
I will make that motion. Ooh. Go for it, Ed.
I did.
Great, Ed second. Matt motion.
That's what Ed going for, it looks and sounds like.
All right, Matt made the motion, Ed second. All in favor, Ted?
This is in favor of denying the request.
Yes.
I am in favor of denying the request.
All right, Jim?
Aye.
Ed?
And I am in favor of denying the request.
All right, Matt?
Aye.
And I'm an aye. All right. Next, we have Burton, 178 Ash Street, request for certificate of compliance. Kim, do you want to give a background on this or?
Yes, I can give a little background. Heat up for us. So there's a lot of plans. I hope that this one is close to the right one. So this was permitted in 2018 for the construction of a single family home. It's 178 Ash Street. There is an intermittent stream to the southeast of the site that runs this way. The site generally grades east and south and east towards Ash Street. So in 2018, the Concom permitted the single family home, including clearing and grading of the lot and associated driveway, septic system. The limit of work was the 50-foot no disturb zone. In 2021, the construction began and the agent, myself, this was the transition time, issued a cease and desist. So there was clearing and grubbing that was observed beyond the limit of work. The applicant's contractor, who was hired to do the clearing and grubbing, I think started work before the erosion control barrier was installed. So there was a bit of a miscommunication there. And according to the plan submitted, the disturbed area totaled 5,830 square feet within the buffer zone. So in January of 2022, the HCC issued an amended order of conditions. The amendments consisted of a reduction in the footprint of the dwelling, the addition of a deck and porch, a shifting of the location of the septic tank, and grading adjustments at the rear of the home. The amended order also included buffer zone mitigation, which consisted of 54 native trees and 26 native shrubs. The applicant has completed the work at the site, the construction of the single family home, and they have submitted a request for certificate of compliance. The applicant's engineer did note some deviations from the approved plans. Currently, the driveway is gravel instead of paved. The diversion berm is not installed. This is the diversion berm here. So in the proposed plans, some runoff from the driveway would come down, hit a swale, and then be diverted into this berm. So that system was not installed. There is a slope near the septic tank that is not stabilized with riprap. The area behind the house is only partially stabilized with loam and seed. And the engineer reported that there was some tree clearing inside the 50-foot and 100-foot buffer zone. So at this point, I would bump it over to Lucas. So Lucas Environmental went out and did a review as well. And the applicant has had several follow-ups with us in response to Lucas's review. So perhaps we should have Lucas go through their comments, and then I'm sure that the applicant also would like to speak up and give some updates as well, because there have been updates after Lucas's review. So I will send it over to Joe.
Okay. I was out on the site on April 25th. As of that date, much of the site was stabilized. However, as was mentioned by Kim, there were some areas that were noted in the as-built description that were still not stabilized. I saw some areas of thin grass cover and some areas that needed further stabilization. And I recommended that the silt fence stay installed until those areas become fully stabilized. There are some old erosion control wattles in the areas that were disturbed that are now revegetating. They're pretty deteriorated. They're not performing much of a function right now. Those could come out. unless there's additional work that needs to happen in those areas. The buffer zone mitigation area is regrowing naturally. Based on what I could see, it was never replanted as was required in the order of conditions. I did not do a detailed inspection of the mitigation area other than just noting that there was a fair amount of natural native vegetation regrowing, some from tree sprouts, stump sprouts. Some areas remain fairly thin as far as any shrub or tree vegetation. And there's a fair amount of invasive vegetation coming up in those areas also. So my recommendation there was that the applicant provide a detailed monitoring report essentially of those areas. It does not appear that any monitoring reports were submitted for the mitigation area, since I don't think it was planted. But I think a status report or monitoring report of those areas would provide the commission with information that they would need to determine if additional plantings need to be done, or if invasive species management needs to be done, which I would recommend, or if the plantings, the regrowth is sufficient. And I think that's for the commission to discuss. And that pretty much is are my comments for the site.
Okay, thank you, Joe. With that, Kim, you said the applicant was on the line and had some updates to share with us since Joe was out there. Is there someone on the phone who wants to chime in?
Yeah, I'm right here. In the last month, obviously things have started to grow. I've planted 6 rhododendrons of various types, all native, according to the University of New Hampshire's native plant list. 2 spice bushes, an azalea, and a paper birch. According to JD Marquette's plan, there are numerous old growth trees already on the property, which weren't accounted for in the original plans. The original plans were, I don't know, maybe based on the idea that there was absolutely nothing there, but obviously there are trees there, full-size trees. According to the Department of Environmental Protection, there's a critical root zone. So where the settling pond was going to be, the contractor that did the septic system was supposed to do that, never did it. However, I have managed to make grass grow there. I observed it during the last period of 24 hours of rain, which was just a couple of days ago. There was another period of 24 hours of rain about 10 days ago. Right now, there's no erosion. There's no running over. All the erosion barriers are in place that were there before. I would, if I have to put the settling pond in, I will. But however, it will be within the root structure of all those trees. Basically, the only section is right there in that video, right by that rock, where there was an absence of vegetation. So that's where I did all the plantings. I spaced them out according to whatever spacing that came with the plants. And they're easy enough to take care of too, from watering them right over the fence. The driveway I will have paved. I just don't have the money for it right now. So if that could be a conditional element to getting this order removed, that is fine. I will get it done by the end of the summer.
Okay.
This video was done today. There were some other pictures I pulled from the video, but the video pretty much tells its story.
Okay. So it sounds like there's been progress, definitely some progress made, since obviously we're in the height of growing season too. Since April.
Yeah, that was my objective, is to take advantage of the spring rains. There is straw. I did throw straw, quite a bunch of it, all along that berm right there, which is compacted stone, bluestone. There is that zip wrap stuff underneath the stone. Much of it's buried because I excavated out all the dirt that had eroded down against the fence and threw it back up onto the hill. Then I loomed over it. So it's hard to see, but it is there.
Okay. It does look like it's still, I forget if it's specified or what the standard is for percent cover to determine. So it's, but the backyard there looks like the front yard looks like it's growing in. The backyard looks like it still has a little ways to go before.
I have 2 dogs, so I have to be careful with what I do with it, so that they don't get, if I do that spray grass on there, I don't think that's really good for the dogs.
Yeah.
So it's growing naturally on its own. I water it twice a day.
Yeah. No, I get it.
I also got rid of all the erosion that was in the street running from there all the way down to the edge of my property on Ash Street, which is about, I don't know, like 150 feet down to where the stream is.
Okay. I think as far as the outstanding items for the order, I mean, you can definitely see the water comes down your driveway pretty good there, which I think is the point of the berm at the bottom, the intention for the design to have that berm at the bottom, so it's not all washing into Ash Street. So I don't know, in my opinion, that's something that we would want to see. I understand we wouldn't want established trees. Not a fan of cutting down trees. It's nice that there's trees that were maintained on the property, it sounds like, rather than cut down when it was built. So I don't know if there's any opportunity to move that berm a little higher on the driveway to avoid impacting the root structure of those established trees and still have the same effect that we're kind of looking for, because you do have a very steep driveway. And it is a big area coming down there, not established in the back. So that would be one of my concerns before closing this out. I do like your comment, Joe, on a monitoring report for mitigation errors, mitigation areas, to make sure that those are planted, sufficiently and growing in and what was intended, or close to it. I think what the other couple items were identified. It was the berm, it was the mitigation plantings, and the cover. Is that right, Kim?
Yes. Yeah, the cover. And I think from my perspective, I'm more concerned about the cover on the side slope. I'm trying to find a part of the video or a photo. Like this slope. Ooh, it disappeared. Rather than, the backyard, because this is kind of that area that kind of drains straight closer to the intermittent stream down here. Yeah, I mean, I think ideally this would be a little bit better vegetated.
That's the area that I was also suggesting that the silt fence remain in place until it's stabilized.
So that, yeah, I think we need a little more time to get this buttoned up before I'd be comfortable issuing a COC. I don't know if anyone else on the board has any comment on that.
Through the chair, I concur. The driveway has me worried. The lack of the, I don't know, the hole at the end of the driveway to take the water. I think I heard the applicant say that he scooped out runoff from the street. So clearly the reason for that pit there at the bottom is needed, and we're just going to have even more runoff likely once it's paved. About that hill that Joe and Kim pointed out, is grass ever going to grow there? It looks like it's fully shaded. Is there a different plan for stabilization of that side yard? Because I'm just wondering if grass will ever grow there.
Yeah, go ahead, Kim.
I'm thinking this may be more of a question for the applicant. Was there a point in time during this application when it was proposed to be riprap on that side, on that slope?
That's that nylon mesh stuff, correct? It's like little squares of nylon. It is there. It's buried, but it's there.
So maybe that we condition for jute matting.
Until it gets...
There is grass growing now, but it's only been growing for like a couple weeks because the last frost was around the 23rd of April. So really not much has grown because it's been so cold. But now that it's warm and sunny, it'll grow. We could just check it at some point in the future. You'll see that there'll be grass there.
Through the chair.
Yes, Matt.
It appeared in those pictures there were some downspouts tied into, I assume, a dry well. Are there gutters along the roof edge where that slope exists?
And they're all cleaned out.
Yeah. So, it would be great to see some vegetation starting to grow, even if it just occurs naturally over the next few months into the fall. I tend to agree that without the driveway being paved, I'd be uncomfortable issuing a COC. So that's really the primary concern on my part is getting that driveway paved so we can eliminate the primary source of the sediment leaving the site and going into the right of way.
Most of the sediment ended up in the street during the initial construction phases before a lot of the erosion barriers or any vegetation was in place or the gutters were placed on the house. I've observed it during periods of extreme rain, and it's most of the loose bluestone is gone. So now it's just large rocks pretty much in the driveway. So there isn't really any more erosion.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, are you amenable to letting things grow and continuing, like Matt said, till maybe the fall?
Yeah, that's fine. As long as we have a solid plan and expectations of what needs to be done, that's totally fine.
Yeah. And I mean, I think, like I said, on I think the berm is important when it's paved. And if you need to make modifications as far as how that gets handled when it comes off the driveway, so you're not, sacrificing trees, then we can have that conversation too. So that would be my thought. Do you have anything else to add, Kim?
I just want to be absolutely clear on expectations. Is the commission requiring that some type of stormwater BMP is installed at the bottom of the slope of the driveway?
I think so. I think we need to be consistent with what was approved on the plan. That there was a BMP at the bottom of the driveway to prevent water from discharging directly onto Ash Street and instead is infiltrated in the front yard. Just the actual, if it needs to be slid to the whatever that is. Can't see north away from the street.
It's west.
Yes. That doesn't bother me.
Okay.
We can, yeah.
Perfect. Thank you.
Through the chair.
Yes.
I may also suggest to the point of some type of mitigation measure at the the street edge there, that the engineer take a look at, you know, in addition to potentially sliding it page left, instead of digging a hole and potentially killing those trees along the street line, diverting the runoff behind the stone wall in a manner that it can run overland more naturally, either through the stone wall or along the edge of the stone wall, with some type of stone control at the wood's edge to distribute it as sheet flow. That may be a more cost-effective and least impactful solution to our concerns here, where you accomplish the goal of not letting the runoff just stream down onto Ash Street, but we also let that stormwater run over natural land down to the intermittent stream where it ultimately wants to get anyway. So, you know, it's not going to create as much impact to that front yard as tearing it up after it's vegetated may otherwise do. If you follow what I'm saying, Melissa, I know you've got the
Yeah, you said it in a better way. You said it in a better way than I did.
Because I don't necessarily know that the volume provides a whole lot of benefit here, as much as giving the flow an opportunity to run overland through the vegetation before it gets down to our resource area.
Right. Yeah, I was thinking the same. There doesn't need to be a big excavation in the front yard.
To the chair, James, does that make sense to you what we're saying?
Yeah, it's totally fine. I mean, I put actually I found a pallet of straw that was in nylon, and I ran it along the driveway just to keep dirt from going onto the lawn for the time being, so the grass could grow. Now that the grass is growing, I was hoping to just pull all that up. Then a lot of the water will actually go across the yard, then hit the erosion barrier that's currently there, and then work its way towards the stream versus going down into the street. So right now it's sort of channeled into the street, but that was just so I could get the grass established.
Yeah. So to that point, when you let it run through the front yard, going through the temporary erosion control barrier, what I'm suggesting is when you take that barrier out, you put down some stone or other permanent linear, quote unquote, filter that'll dissipate those flows as they enter the woodland. And then once they're in the woodland, they'll kind of find their path, and there's opportunities for some overland treatment that won't require you to rip up the front yard.
Makes sense.
Okay. Okay, do we need to vote to continue or not? I'm sorry, Kim, I'm getting tired.
Okay. We do not need to vote to continue. It's a discussion, not a hearing. So when the applicant is ready, you can reach out to me and we can get you scheduled for a hearing.
Okay.
I'm good. I do drive by your house all the time, and I really like the architecture and the look of it. I thought it was really cool. Like, it's just well placed. I think it turned out really nice for that lot.
Thank you. It'll be a lot nicer when my driveway's paved, so I don't track dirt into my house.
Okay. I think that was it, unless we have any public forum requests, Kim.
We do not.
Okay, awesome. Then can I get a motion to close the public hearing?
So
moved. Second.
All right, all in favor? Ted?
Ted is an aye.
Ed?
Aye.
Jim?
Aye.
Matt?
Aye.
And I'm an aye. All right.
That's it.
Thanks for hanging in there.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, everybody.
All right, everybody.
Good job, Melissa.
Go Seas.
Thanks.